Yeah, welcome into the Friday edition of Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, brought to you by Chuck McDowell and Medical House Calls, Middle Tennessee's best medical care in the comfort and safety of your own home. For more information, go to medicalhousecalls.com. Medical House Calls, where the nearest clinic is your home. Robbie Stanley alongside Joe Rexrode. Connor Newt here with you this morning on this Friday morning. We are from Nashville, Tennessee, myself and Connor. Joe Rexrode down there live in Orlando, Florida, in advance of the Tennessee and Iowa game coming up in the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl. Should I say in advance of that game, or should I say in the aftermath of the Pop-Tarts Bowl last night? Joe Rexrode, good morning. How are you?
Yeah. Well, they're transitioning. So, the media room last night had Pop-Tarts. I got a thing of blueberry, so I'm excited about that. Transitioning to Cheez-It. So you can say whatever you want. You can also say, see this coffee right here?
Yeah, I noticed there's a fiasco going on before the show.
You could see that, couldn't you? Yeah, half of this spilled on my laptop right now. So get ready for a fun program.
Should be.
Could be great. The kids, make sure that the top is securely on before you grab the thing from near the top and let it spill all over the place. Good God.
But you're a champ, and you're persevering through. Look at you. Just a lot of resiliency being displayed by Rexrode so far this morning. It's good to see.
Yeah, well, when this thing explodes finally in a fiery ball of hell, then we'll see how I react to that.
Connor Newt, welcome to the program. How are we doing? What's going on?
Good morning, guys. It's a little change of scenery for me, but I'm happy to be here with you.
We're happy to have you, Connor. Nick Keyser has abandoned us for the day, and we've been left in the capable hands of Connor Newt. Looking forward to that.
Semi-capable.
So it's Nick's what birthday?
Is this 25? Is it 26? One of the two.
He's an old man now.
Yeah, he's an ancient soul.
Yeah. Like exactly half my age. How depressing.
Don't worry, Joe. Your birthday's coming up.
Yeah, that's right. Thanks for the reminder.
You're very welcome.
Best birthday ever.
You're very welcome. How about that Pop-Tarts Bowl last night? I got to say, I didn't watch a whole lot of the game because, quite frankly, I don't care about who was playing in the game. I will say, though, the Pop-Tarts people may have done the best job of marketing a bowl game that I've ever seen in my life. Just given the display of the live human Pop-Tart out there coming out of the makeshift toaster, eating out of the Pop-Tart after the game, and my entire timeline was in a discussion on Twitter last night about the best flavor of Pop-Tart. It was an excellent job of marketing by the Pop-Tarts Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, we have been completely. I mean, this is like subliminal advertising, and it like flashes something, and you go eat at Denny's or whatever, and then you just have to do that all day. Like you don't know why, but you just you feel like you have to do it. I mean, we've been talking about Pop-Tarts for days. I haven't thought this much about Pop-Tarts since I was like 7. They've done a hell of a job. Now, I will say, when you talk about best ever marketing, I mean, I think Duke's Mayo.
It's pretty good.
Kind of the standard setter. They've got the whole bath, for the coach thing going. Even though it's gross, it still gets it out there. A lot of talk about Duke's Mayo, but yeah, both of them excellent. Much better than Beef O'Brady's.
Yes, much better than Beef O'Brady's. Congratulations to Kansas State for winning the Pop-Tarts Bowl. I couldn't get over, and I guess I just haven't noticed this all year long, that Avery Johnson is the name of the quarterback for Kansas State, and the only thing I could think about the whole time was Avery Johnson, the basketball player slash coach, and who has one of my favorite voices and accents on the face of the planet. It's the only thing I can think about the whole time. Throw the ball!
Oh, man. Yes.
Beautiful.
Absolutely. Where's he been, by the way?
I don't know.
The other one, like the one we know.
I don't know.
The old one.
I guess it says that he is an American basketball television commentator right now. I have no idea where he's commentating, but I'd love to see it.
Yeah, because before he got the Bama job, he did national NBA games.
Yeah,
a lot. I don't remember on what, but I loved his analysis.
Bring me more Avery Johnson.
Yeah,
we need a little bit more. So congratulations to Kansas State for winning the Pop-Tarts Bowl. Arizona takes down Oklahoma last night in the Alamo Bowl. So the Sooners get blasted 38-24 by Arizona. And then on Thursday Night Football, Joe Flacco does it again. The Browns win 37-20. They improve to 11-5. They secure a playoff spot in the AFC. And Joe Flacco finishes 19 of 29, 309 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, a quarterback rating of 121.2. So the Joe Flacco story in Cleveland continuing, and he does it last night by taking down his former team and a team that when Aaron Rodgers went down this year with the Achilles injury, apparently did not consider calling Joe Flacco for his services. And, boy, based on the way that Flacco has played to this point, could the Jets have used Flacco this year?
Yeah, that's true. Now, when the Jets decided not to call Flacco, how many people in the world not in the Flacco family gave a crap or thought it was a mistake?
0.
I'll go. Yes, exactly. Thank you. I mean, it's incredible what's happening right now. I mean, I think this probably speaks to – I mean, I've probably underrated Flacco some in his time in Baltimore. I mean, he was good, right? But there's
a discussion as to whether or not he was elite for a long time. That was a big thing.
Did you think he was elite?
No, I did not. But he got paid at one point like he was.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, he was good, but I mean, this is, to me, obviously give him credit. He's playing extremely well. It's also, I mean, I think it kind of speaks to, you know, what they're doing with the offense. I think Stefanski's pretty freaking good, you know.
Yeah.
To get this, and now the question is then how come, you know, like Deshaun Watson doesn't do this in the same offense with the same coach, you know? But it's an incredible story. I mean, Flacco he's gone. I think Dorian Thompson-Robinson's probably the backup next year.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong. Like maybe they decide that Flacco's too good and they got to keep him around. But I mean, they have to start Deshaun Watson, right?
Yeah. I mean, he's got a fully guaranteed contract, right? I mean, you're just going to sit there and let him hang out as a backup, paying him that much money?
What if Flacco takes him to the Super Bowl?
I mean,
first
off, I think if that happens, he would probably retire. And he's kind of talked about at the end of the year, it's probably what's going to happen. But, I mean, what a commentary that would be on Deshaun Watson. First off, Flacco's already come in, and we talked about this a little bit yesterday with Charles. He's looked infinitely better than Watson has at really any point. Like, Watson's had maybe a couple of really good games.
Well, his last game before he got hurt, he was incredible, and he beat Lamar Jackson on the road.
Right.
But that's it, basically.
Yeah, that's it.
And he looked good against the Titans.
Besides, throwing the ball 30 yards backwards. But, yes, He did look good against the Titans. And, Flacco's coming in. And like I said, I mean, he threw another pick 6 last night, so it's not like it's all been perfect, but he continues to just put up 300 yards a game and move that offense downfield. I mean, Jerome Ford's catching touchdowns last night. Amari Cooper didn't do anything last night. First off, Elijah Moore, that injury was really scary to watch, so hopefully he's okay at the end of that. That was, if you didn't see it, very uncomfortable to watch, some head trauma that it looked like there. So hopefully for his sake moving forward that he's okay. But it's just been wild to watch what Joe Flacco's been able to do. Now they clinched the playoff spot, and, my old favorite saying, Joe, if the season ended today, it would be a Cleveland-Jacksonville matchup in the first round. And based on the way the Jags have played and the way that Cleveland's playing right now,
Jags were up in that game at Cleveland a couple weeks ago, right?
Yeah.
And didn't Flacco have to lead them back? So
yeah, a lot of turnovers
in
that game.
Yeah. So, but no, I mean, Cleveland's not the team that you want to see right now. Obviously, they're going to be on the road, and that's probably where they're going to be, right? They're going to be at the AFC South winner.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
it's going to be a tough one.
There's still an outside chance that they could. I mean, look, there's a chance they could get the number 1 overall seed in the AFC. There's an outside chance that they could win the division here, but that would require Baltimore, I think, losing both of their final 2 games here, which I don't think is going to happen.
Yeah, I would not think so. Another important aspect of last night I want to make sure I get in here because I'm here to serve the listeners. In the Titans Media League, where I'm playing Sam Phelan in the championship game, let's see, I have Breece Hall, David Njoku in the Browns
Oh
defense.
boy.
So that's like 55 points on just on one night. So I just want everyone to know how insufferable I'm going to be if I win the Titans Media League again.
An impending champion could be on the way. We'll see what happens
Yes.
on that front. On the injury front, on the Titans-Texans matchup, C.J. Stroud cleared from concussion protocol yesterday, Joe. So it will be C.J. Stroud that the Titans will play against on Sunday down in Houston. Will Levis, another day of full participation with the Titans on the practice field yesterday with the ankle. So it looks like it's very much trending towards Will Levis taking on C.J. Stroud on Sunday down in Houston.
That'd be fun. And I just want to remind everybody that C.J. Stroud plays for a much better team than Will Levis does right now, which I know is still kind of funny to say, about the Houston Texans after the last few years, but
Yes.
it's true. I mean, it's true. But it would be fun. It'll be fun if that's the case. And look, I'm surprised that Levis, I guess, looks as good as he does and looks ready. But I mean, look, if he's as healthy as it appears, then I think you play him. I think that's fine. I mean, you can't, you don't send him out there if he's limping around, if he's dealing with pain.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like he is, so that's a more interesting game.
No question about it. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. We're off and running today here on Robby and Rexrode. Willie Donick will join us at 7:30 live from Detroit in advance of the Predators taking on the Red Wings tonight. They got a back-to-back set coming up this weekend, tonight in Detroit, tomorrow in Washington. We'll talk to Willie a little bit later in the program today. Coming up next, we'll take a look at the AFC South. Big matchup coming for the Titans on Sunday against the Texans. How are we feeling about how the future of the AFC South is lining up at the moment? We'll take your thoughts on that as well. 615-737-1025. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. We are live from our 102.5 The Game studio, brought to you by Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Joe Rexrode live in Orlando, Florida, in advance of the Vols and the Iowa Hawkeyes coming up in the Citrus Bowl on New Year's Day. 615-737-1025, our phone number, 615-737-1025. So, Joe, a big matchup coming for the Titans on Sunday in terms of maybe two future quarterbacks in this division that could be around for a long time. C.J. Stroud has looked very good when he has been healthy this year, and the Houston Texans have been a surprise team in the AFC with a chance to make the playoffs. Will Levis has come in, and we've talked about the way that he's played. For the most part, I think it's been really good for the Titans. So lots of excitement down in Houston for Stroud, lots of hope and optimism for Will Levis here in Nashville with the Titans as well. And, Joe, I look around at the rest of the division right now, and I think it's a really intriguing division moving forward with Stroud, with Levis, and Jacksonville. If you're a Jaguars fan right now, you kind of got to be scratching your head a little bit because this was supposed to be their year, and this was supposed to be the year they were going to run away with the division, get back in the playoffs. You know, you got Trevor Lawrence and that roster that they built up specifically on the offensive side of the ball that was supposed to take the next step and be, you know, really good. And there have been moments in games this year where that offense has been good, but I think underwhelming is probably the word to describe what they've been for the most part. And I know the last few weeks that Trevor Lawrence has been dealing with an injury, but they were 8-3, now they're 8-7, and they're reeling right now. So we'll see if Jacksonville can pull that together. So you've got that side of things with Jacksonville. And then there's Indy with Anthony Richardson getting hurt this year. I think Shane Steichen deserves a lot of credit for the job that he's been able to do, getting them to 8-7. Right now, they're the number 7 seed in the AFC, so they'd be in the playoffs with Gardner Minshew leading the way at quarterback. So I think Steichen has done an excellent job in his first season with the Colts. As we sit here today, Joe, how do you view what the future of the AFC South could look like and how the Titans may fit into that mix with Will Levis leading the way at quarterback?
Well, first of all, I think when you start to address that question, even I think it's a way more of a discussion. It has been way more of a discussion here, but I think you have to get into the Vrabel discussion. So, I mean, we're presuming Vrabel's back and next year, and he's the coach, and that's right. I mean,
that is my
think,
presumption.
Yeah, and mine too. I think that's what's going to happen. So you judge these teams on coaches. It's hard to do that now. Vrabel has done a lot more than the two guys in Houston and Indy, but obviously very promising starts for both of them. And yeah, it's funny. I mean, the Jags could this year actually basically copy the Titans last year. I mean, it's possible.
Yeah.
You know, it's possible that they go to 8-9 from 8-3. Lose their last 6 and fall out of the playoffs from a commanding lead in the division. I mean, that would be amazing. And again, if you want to take this to the Titans, like if someone told you that was going to happen, you'd be like, oh, so the Titans are just going to flip the reversal on them. But instead, it's going to be one of those other two teams that takes advantage if that's the case. I mean, obviously, so the coaching situation, I mean, I think all of them have, like, you have two proven coaches, one who's won a Super Bowl in Jacksonville. I still think he's a good coach. Obviously, this year they've had some surprising issues here down the stretch. And then I like the two coaches, what we've seen so far. It is early. But I also think Trevor Lawrence kind of proves, like, people think that they know, like C.J. Stroud's going to be an all-pro. You don't know. You don't know what's going to happen there. There could be ups and downs. Trevor Lawrence, obviously now it's kind of, I still think he's good, and I think he's worth keeping and giving a lot of money to, but also he's a kind of a good example of, man, sometimes it's just not clear, I mean, the big question, of course, is that position, and that's where the other three, I think some people would be like, well, Stroud is up here, and then the other two, but I don't know that. I mean, I think there's promising signs with Will Levis. I think there's promising signs with Anthony Richardson too, but I would say we know the least about him. And the concern obviously there is health and his game, how he plays, how they use him in health.
Yeah, I mean, the Lawrence part of this is really interesting because, I mean, certainly if you look at the numbers, it's been disappointing from him this year, given what the expectations were for him heading into the year. I mean, look, we had Michael DeRocco on before the year who covers the Jags for ESPN, and he was talking about the offense and how, like, if things fell right, like Trevor Lawrence could be in the MVP discussion. Obviously, he's not in that, and that has not gone that way for Jacksonville. And the last 3 games specifically, I mean, it's been bad. He was, at Cleveland, he completed 56% of his passes. He threw 3 picks. Last time out against Tampa, last Sunday, 58% of his passes, 1 touchdown, 2 picks. He's also been hurt for the last 3 weeks. So how much of it has been the injury with Trevor Lawrence and how much of it has been just not playing well enough? I mean, you look through a stretch here basically from the beginning of October to the end of the month in October. He's really good. I mean, he threw for 207 against Atlanta and a touchdown, 315 against Buffalo in London and a touchdown. I mean, that's when they were kind of going through their stretch there of, I think they won 5 in a row, and they looked really good. And you thought, okay, well, Trevor Lawrence has taken the next step. Jacksonville looks like they're going to run away with the division. And ever since then, they've kind of, they lost to San Francisco, beat the Titans the next week like a drum. And ever since then, it's been pretty much a struggle. They beat Houston the week after that and have since lost 4 in a row. So what do you do with that if you're Jacksonville in terms of what does that mean for your future in this division? You've got Calvin Ridley this year. He's been up and down. You've got, ETN has actually been pretty good in the backfield when he's been healthy and has been out there. But they've been a tough team to figure out. And if you're forecasting out, if you're them, it's like, well, this was supposed to be our year at a rookie quarterback in C.J. Stroud, a rookie quarterback in Anthony Richardson, and the Titans kind of fell apart and have gone to a rookie quarterback in Will Levis. If they end up screwing this up and not winning the division, it's hard to feel good about things moving forward if you're Jacksonville based on, I think, the moves that other teams around you have made.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Also, if you go through any like good era for like a team in this league, you'll often find like a random season. I mean, even like think about the Titans' glory days. What year was that where they just went like 6-10?
It was like, so 99 and 2000 they were 13-3, and then 01 I think they were 7-9.
Yeah, but that wasn't a 7-9 team, right? Like
bunch of injuries, yeah.
And then, in 03, McNair's co-MVP and you're back, contending. So, I mean, the Patriots had years like that. I'm not comparing the Jags to that. I'm just saying, like, I don't know that causes you to change course, but certainly, like, it's concerning. And, frankly, I think it's exciting to think about like a division with a bunch of good teams, and you could have different winners, in given years. But there's no question, there was more discussion about the Jags possibly being a 1 seed or being a real contender in the AFC than anyone else in the division. So this is a disappointment, but in part it's because no one saw the Colts and Texans doing what they're doing so quickly.
What do you make of what the Colts have been able to do this year with Minshew at quarterback, Shane Steichen's first year? I mean, like I said, they're 8-7. Right now they're in the 7th spot in the playoffs. We'll see if they're able to hold on to that down the stretch here. But the fact that they're even in playoff discussion to me, given the fact that Anthony Richardson went down with Steichen as their head coach, I think speaks very well of him.
Yeah, it does. The thing about the Colts is, I mean, I don't love their roster anymore, and so I figured, whether they were going to go with Minshew this year, because we weren't sure, right? It was like, well, maybe Richardson is one of those rookies who, would benefit from sitting, and but I just like, I think like a guy like Pittman has really come on. I think like Downs has been a good pick for them, so they are better. They've got a little bit better, and they've had several backs have good games, even though they paid Jonathan Taylor, which they may end up regretting. They had that whole saga, and they're still good. I think Steichen has been impressive. I mean, you have to be impressed with him. And they're a solid team. I still sometimes don't know how they're doing it. And I don't know that I trust them here down the stretch based on how they've looked in a few games. But overall, it's encouraging. It's also like it's so much about Anthony Richardson that, and that's still the big question. And so you're going to try to build around him, and I still just don't know with him. I mean, I think we all know how talented he is, but is he going to be, a top quarterback in this league? I have no idea right now. That's what it's going to have to be.
Yeah. Andrew from Dover on the text line says, Hot Take Friday for you. In 2 years, the AFC South will have 3 teams fighting to all get into playoff position. They got that right now.
Well, they are right now.
Yeah. The Titans, unfortunately, are not one of them, but they got 3 teams fighting to get in right now.
Yeah, what about 4? If you're going to have a hot take, Andrew, how about 4?
All 4 of them.
I mean, I think that's absolutely possible. I mean, we do see that in divisions sometimes. And again, it's all about these quarterbacks. Excuse me. But if they're what the teams hope they are, then yeah, I mean, I think all 4 of these teams can be fighting for postseason berths in multiple years ahead.
So what do you make of how the future of the AFC South is shaking up? And where do the Titans fit into that mix with Mike Vrabel and with Will Levis? Do you think Mike Vrabel's a part of it? 615-737-1025, our phone number, 615-737-1025. We'll continue that discussion coming up next. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063, The Game. Tune in later this morning at 8:45 for your chance to participate in Preds Pick to Click and win a pair of tickets to an upcoming Preds home game. Pick to Click brought to you by TJ Anderson Homes of Benchmark Realty. List your home with TJ to get your home seen, heard, and sold. We'll have that coming up later today at 8:45. Also, make sure you tune in this Monday. The only place to catch the college football playoff is on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. At 4 o'clock, Alabama takes on Michigan, followed by Texas and Washington in the college football playoff semifinal. Your home for the college football playoffs is 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Taking your thoughts on the AFC South, 615-737-1025, our phone number. Let's go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in our buddy Mark in Nashville. Mark, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
Yeah, how you doing, Robby? What's
going
up,
on, Mark?
Joe?
What's up, buddy?
Hey, Joe. Don't be mad at me, man. I'm going to walk back on what I said last week. I think a debate would be good between us, but I don't want to mess our friendship up, Joe. I love you too much, man. So I'm going to kind of walk, like you said, Miyagi, he didn't challenge his students, so I'm gonna leave that alone, Joe. But, the AFC South, man, I think here, Robby, in a couple of years, it's going to be a dominant and good division, man. I mean, it's really got a lot of good young players. I mean, they all got good quarterbacks coming through, and you throw Levis in there and Richardson and Trevor and C.J. Stroud, and I mean, Jacksonville's struggling a little bit right now trying to get to the playoffs. Houston's done a heck of a job doing what they're doing with D'Amico Ryan. C.J. Stroud will probably be your rookie of the year this year, but I think that the AFC South is going to be one heck of a division here in the next 2-3 years. I don't know who the dominant team's going to be because I think they're all going to be pretty much on the same level year in and year out. But I think they're really going to be good. But, hey, Robby, don't forget about me, Robby. I've been trying to get in touch with you, man. So don't forget about me, man. I really do need to
Mark,
talk
I
to
could
you.
never forget about you.
Yeah, don't forget about me. But, hey, Joe, love you, man. Love you, Robby. Hey, Happy New Year, y'all. And,
Happy New Year, Mark.
Yeah, Joe, don't drink too much, man. Okay, don't overdo it,
It's his
Joe.
birthday, so
Oh, it's your birthday.
it's his birthday
Yeah.
coming on New Year's Eve. So.
New Year's Eve, which means I'm going to curl up in a ball. And
Yeah, well, hey,
Joe doesn't go
happy-
anywhere on New Year's Eve.
Yeah, happy birthday, Joe. I mean, yeah, you're
right.
good, man. You're good, Joe.
Thanks, man.
But Joe, don't be upset at me, man. But I do think a
We're
debate
good. We're
between
good.
us. Yeah, I think a debate would be good, though, Joe. I mean, I think the people would want to hear that. I'm trying to get into the now with y'all, man. So I gotta try to make some waves, but we're good, Joe.
Mark,
We're
thanks
cool.
for the call, buddy.
Yeah. We'll talk. Yeah, we can make this happen at some point. But you can have a debate with someone and still be friends. Look like Jared and me.
There are people that believe that you aren't friends, though, and I keep trying to tell people you are.
Yeah. I mean, I let him text me and call me an idiot for saying Josh Dobbs is the top 5 backup in the NFL.
He loved that one. He's back on the air today at 2 o'clock. I'm sure he'll bring it up at some point.
Did you see some of the quarterbacks he was throwing out that were like, Teddy Bridgewater?
Yeah.
And
Who I believe is retiring.
the red
by the
rifle.
way.
Yeah. Andy Dalton. These are Jared's sweet, awesome backups in the NFL.
615-737-1025. Part of what Mark said there, Joe, like if you're a Titans fan, the question I'm wondering right now is, will the Titans be on par with these other teams? Because right now they're not, obviously. I mean, they've not won a game in the division. They're 5-10. They're going to be last in the division. And, if things fall either right or wrong, depending on the way you're looking at it, the last 2 weeks here, they could end up with a top 5 draft pick. So right now the Titans are not on par with Houston and Jacksonville and Indianapolis. Can they get to a
it's not a
point where
gimme.
they are? Yeah, it's not a gimme. So, and look, I like Will Levis. I like a lot of what I've seen from him, but Titans have a whole lot of work to do to get to a place where they're back to being on par with those teams and being able to challenge for the division. And that's going to be the challenge that's in front of Vrabel and Carthon moving ahead to the offseason.
I've said it before, you look at, and you can take whatever rankings with a grain of salt, but if you go to whatever site you like, you can go to Pro Football Focus or Pro Football Reference, whatever. I mean, there's a lot of places that rank offensive lines, and there's a pretty strong correlation between the best offensive lines and the best teams in the NFL. So, and obviously defense matters too. So if you took the quarterbacks away from the equation, how would you rank these 4 teams?
Man, that's a good question. Honestly, I might go Houston 1,
Yeah.
Jacksonville 2, Indy 3, Titans 4.
I think I would too. It's close, but I think, basically, look, if you stink for an extended period of time and then you get extra draft capital, that's what should happen, right?
Yeah.
Like, you should have some good young players. They got a pretty good offensive line, got some good young skill, and obviously some really good young defensive players. So I think it's close because, I mean, the Jags have a lot of talent.
They do.
But also, the Jags, I think Josh Allen, I think they're going to, right? I think he'll be back with them.
I would think so.
Ridley may be elsewhere, though. So, there's some questions there. They're a little bit more veteran and, kind of in the now, and the Texans are on the rise. But I think, right now, those two, I think, would be the – and that's where, like, I am very impressed with Shane Steichen, what he's done this year. And then the Titans, like Mark said, they'll be in there with Lev, but they've got a lot of improving to do. That's not just a guarantee they're going to make the right choices, obviously.
Ed on the text line says, how many times will the AFC South quarterbacks be crowned and cast off over the next 3 years? Get ready for the roller coaster. And first off, that's a good point. Secondly, like, the odds are still, Joe, and I know that we've seen some good things from Stroud. Lawrence obviously was the number 1 overall pick, was thought to be one of those generational guys, and he's not been that so far. I mean, he's a good player, but he's not been a generational guy to this point in his career. Levis has shown some good things. Richardson, before he got hurt, I thought showed a little bit of promise. The odds still would say, Joe, though, that all 4 of these guys in the division are not going to work out at the same time. I mean, it's going to be difficult for that to happen. Now, if they do, then I think what Mark brought up and what we've talked about of the idea of this being a really good division for a long time, that's what it comes down to when you have good quarterback play. That's how you lead to some of those divisions. But like, the jury is still out on all these guys, and it's going to be interesting to see, like, can C.J. Stroud, can he follow it up next year as to what's been a really good rookie season? Can the Titans surround Will Levis with enough talent to take his game to the next level? Anthony Richardson, we barely saw this year. What's he going to look like with a full season? Can he stay healthy? Can he kind of take the next step as an NFL player in the offense? The jury's still out on a lot of these guys, and the odds, even though we've seen some good things from all of them, the odds would still say that not every one of these guys is going to work out in the division.
Right. And also, what is working out? Like, is Trevor Lawrence working out? I mean, he's good.
He's not what they drafted him to be right now, though.
He's not what they thought. Right. He's not what they hoped. So what will working out be for Will Levis, Stroud, again, it's like, I mean, great point by Ed. And it speaks exactly what I was saying earlier about Stroud. I mean, this year, the Carolina Panthers and New York Jets, and of course the Jets, he got hurt in that game, but in those 2 games, he looked like about as bad a rookie quarterback as you could look. But, that happens. I'm not ripping. I'm just saying he's had incredible games, too. Some people act like, he's going to get 5 of the next 7 MVPs. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with him. It's just – and then you have, like we talked yesterday about, like, the quarterbacks who get cast off and then they get, Baker Mayfield goes off in Tampa Bay. You're like, oh, gosh, he actually is pretty good, huh? I mean, it's just not as linear as people want it to be. And I mean, you're absolutely right. Like, I'd love to think that for the next 7 years, these are the 4 quarterbacks for these teams. They're all good. The teams are all good. That would be a ton of fun. But I'd say, that's not how it's going to work out.
Well, and like, even from the Levis perspective, like, how much of whether or not Levis, quote unquote, works out is based on the decisions that the Titans make now moving forward around him, right? Like, you to me, still, you got to make the right choices on the offensive line. You got to find a way to bring in some better receiving talent to set him up. But I mean, look, he's made some big-time throws. He's had some really good games. There's a lot to like from Will Levis. So it's not like you need – if your quarterback is what you hope he is when you draft somebody to be a franchise quarterback, you don't always need the elite of the elite talent around the guys, but you do have to make some right decisions to put them in the best possible position to succeed. And if the Titans go out here this offseason and they can't figure out the offensive line again, and we're looking at more of the same next year, and they can't figure out the right guys to bring in at the skill positions, that's going to have a negative effect on Will Levis and the way that he's viewed as they move forward here. So a lot of this certainly comes down to Levis. It also comes down to Vrabel and Carthon and whoever the Titans' decision makers are moving forward to make sure that when you're bringing in some of these guys, you have to choose right. This is such a crucial offseason for not only next year, but really like the next 5 years for this franchise. This offseason is so big, and they have to make the right choices on the line and the skill positions.
Right. At least to get to decent, solid. I mean, those offensive line rankings I mentioned, I think it's PFF. The Titans are 32 of 32. Again, PFF, say of it what you will, but it kind of matches up with what we watch, right?
Yes.
I'm here around the Iowa people down here in Orlando, and it's funny because last night I was having I again brought up one of my favorite topics, which is what would have happened if Chuck Long didn't get cursed by going to the Detroit Lions organization. Anybody of a certain age, it was Chuck Long and Bo Jackson for the Heisman in 1985.
Oh, yeah.
Meanwhile, Troy Aikman, let's see, maybe the best offensive line of all time, certainly probably one of the top 5, a great back, although overrated. Incredible, receivers. Michael Irvin, one of the great receivers. Novacek. That stuff matters. Troy Aikman was a great quarterback. Don't get me wrong, but what if he had Chuck Long's situation? What if you reverse those two guys?
What if Joey Harrington ended up with the New England Patriots instead of the Lions?
There you go. Exactly. They're all just chasing Dan Fouts, but the point is, it's a lot about your supporting cast. And Dan Fouts' supporting cast is pretty good, too, by the way.
It was. Coming up next, it's time for Call Your Shot Friday. We'll take your called shots, your bold predictions on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Bowl games, college football playoff happening this weekend, Titans and Texans, Preds with a back-to-back, everything on the table on our text line, 615-737-1025. We'll do that coming up next. Tune in to 93.3 Classic Hits tomorrow for MTSU men's basketball. Blue Raiders on the road facing Murray State with pregame beginning at 2:30, tip-off at 3 o'clock. Coverage also available on the 93.3 Classic app and at 93.3classichits.com. This is Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. It is that time of the week, time for Call Your Shot Friday here on Robby and Rexrode. We'll take your called shots, your bold predictions on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. 615-737-1025, our number. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Connor Newt in for Nick Keyser. Joe Rexrode, how did we do last week on Call Your Shot Friday?
Okay, well, let's see. Did Nick only... Am I correct that Nick only made one pick?
I believe that is correct.
Okay, well, he had Matt Duchene with a 3-point night. The Preds win 4-3 in regulation with a Forsberg game winner. I don't remember who they played. Who the heck did they play? What game were you talking about?
Well, they played Dallas.
We're talking about the Dallas game. Yeah, so, okay, that didn't happen. You had Duchene with 2 goals, Forsberg 2 goals.
Nope.
You had Tyler Seguin with the overtime game winner. No overtime needed somehow. Tannehill throwing for less than 150, and he threw for what? 152?
They threw for 152. That was close.
Oh, my goodness. You had a 10-6 final, so a little bit more exciting than that.
It was 10-6 for a while, man.
Yeah. And Traylon Burks with no catches.
I get two.
Yeah, he had a couple. I had Duchene does not score a goal tomorrow.
Nailed it.
Ding, 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 ding. Ryan Tannehill will throw a TD of more than 50 yards of Traylon Burks. That certainly didn't happen. And DK Metcalf with more than 175 receiving. He probably could have if they just would have said, you know what, let's get him and Trey Avery together as much as possible. And yeah, but the Lockett and Smith and Jigba were nice outlets. The Titans had a little extra attention on Metcalf, so they screwed me up there.
Connor Newt, your called shots for this week.
I'm going to give you a couple.
Okay.
Obviously tonight, the Predators are in beautiful Detroit.
They are.
Taking on the Red Wings. I'm going to take the Preds 4-2.
Okay.
And give me Ryan O'Reilly with 2 goals and an assist.
Ooh, I like that. 3-point night for Ryan O'Reilly, 4-2 win for the Nashville Predators. I like that.
And then my second one will be Vols centered in the Cheez-It Bowl versus Iowa. It's obviously Nico Iamaleava's debut, which I nailed that last name, by the way.
You did. Way to go.
Give me Nico with 250 yards passing and 3 touchdowns.
Woo! Vol Twitter will break, Joe. 250 yards passing, 3 touchdowns. I like it. Joe Rexrode, your called shots for this week.
Okay, well, I'm going to go Nico also. I've got more than 200 yards, so I mean I think 250 is a stronger shot, but I think more than 200 is a shot against Iowa. 2 touchdowns.
Okay.
2 picks.
Okay.
So we're triple 200, 2 and 2 for Nico. Now here's a called shot, very controversial. This may be the most shocking called shot in the history of the show. Iowa will score 2 touchdowns.
Oh, I got another one coming up. You're gonna love then.
I thought maybe the
microphone
app
break
was going to explode on that one. My laptop could explode at any moment. Now still it's just dripping coffee. Will Levis will have more passing yards Sunday than CJ Stroud.
Oh boy, look at there. I like that one.
Now that could be the product of garbage time, but I'm just saying that when it's all said and done, there will be more passing yards for Will Levis than CJ Stroud. And finally, Jalen Milroe will have a rushing touchdown of more than 70 yards for Alabama against Michigan.
Okay, I like that. That's good. All right, my called shots. Nico throws a touchdown pass on his first drive, and Vol Twitter claims the national title. First down pass on the first drive. Vol Twitter goes nuts, claims the national title. Iowa.
Before you continue, by the way.
Yep.
One thing, Iowa very often gives up like a TD on the scripted drive.
Yep.
And then like nothing else. So that could turn out real well for you.
We'll see how it goes. Iowa will score 20 points on this Tennessee defense. 20 points for Iowa.
And here I thought I was being bold. My
20
goodness.
points.
20 points. Woo! I
know. It's just they don't even know what to do. I don't know if they can count to 20 with that offense. But 20 points for Iowa against this Tennessee defense, because I have no idea who's playing in the secondary for them and how that's going to go. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
The Predators and the Red Wings will combine for 11 goals tonight. 11 goals combined. I'm expecting a high-scoring affair. Red Wings can't stop anything right now, but I do think they have a lot of talent offensively, so I think we're going to be in for a barn burner tonight. Derrick Henry has more than 100 yards from scrimmage against the Texans, and the Titans will score 24 points exactly. 24 points for the Titans, more than 100 yards from scrimmage for Derrick Henry. Those are my called shots.
Those are shots.
I got a texter that says, here's my called shot. Detroit and Cleveland in the Super Bowl. What a mashup of the fan bases that would be with the Lions and the Browns in the Super Bowl, two of the longer-suffering franchises in sports history, much less NFL history.
Yeah, if that happens, like I don't know. I think Haley's comment is still a long time from coming back, but it will cut the planet in half immediately at kickoff of the Super Bowl. It will just zip back here and cut our planet in half.
It's all over. Jim on the text line says, Nico throws for 3 touchdowns, and the Vols smoke Iowa. Basically, if he throws for 3 touchdowns, they might smoke Iowa. We'll see. Trey from Antioch on the text line says, Alabama beats Michigan by 2 touchdowns, and Milroe has 150 rushing yards and 200 passing yards. This is from Trey from Antioch. A 2-touchdown win for the Crimson Tide. That's bold. I like it.
Yeah, I don't know about that. That is a shot.
Ben says the Packers will make the playoffs, and Washington beats Texas. Michigan beats Alabama. So a Washington and Michigan national title, according to Ben.
Okay. I mean, I guess picking those 2 winners, I guess that would be qualify as a shot. Even though Michigan's technically favored, right?
At the moment.
Yeah. People are acting like Bama's a 10-point favorite.
There's a lot of people picking Bama. The money is still on Michigan, but a lot of people picking Bama. Is the Packers making the playoffs a shot? They've got the Vikings. They got Jaron Hall at quarterback that they're playing against on Sunday, and then they've got the mighty Chicago Bears to close out the season. If they win both, there's I believe the numbers are, if they win both, they got a 95% chance to make it.
Can you explain Jaron Hall at quarterback to me?
No, I can't. I don't know what – I mean, they've gone Mullins, Dobbs, and now they're going back to Jaron Hall. So I don't really know what they're doing up there in Minnesota.
I mean, what happened? I don't understand like how Josh Dobbs has fallen that far out of favor.
I don't like Jaron Hall was in there, and then he got a little banged up, and Dobbs had to go in. So that's how Dobbs got in the first place. But like, I wasn't overly impressed with Jaron Hall when he was in there either. So I don't know. Look, it's the Packers, so they're liable to give up 325 yards passing to Jaron Hall on Sunday. But I did not understand that move.
Yeah, weird.
615-737-1025, our phone number, 615-737-1025. We'll continue to look ahead to the Titans and the Texans coming up next. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Hour number 2, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, brought to you by Chuck McDowell and Medical House Calls, Middle Tennessee's best medical care in the comfort and safety of your own home. For more information, go to medicalhousecalls.com. Medical House Calls, where the nearest clinic is your home. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Connor Newt here with you on this Friday morning. Taking your thoughts all show long, 615-737-1025. We'll be joined by Willie Donick, live from Detroit, coming up at 7:30 in advance of the Predators and the Red Wings coming up tonight in the Motor City. So looking forward to that. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Joe, the Titans and the Texans coming up on Sunday. We mentioned it earlier. C.J. Stroud getting through the concussion protocol, so he's going to be out there starting for the Texans on Sunday. Will Levis, another day of full participation for the Titans at practice yesterday with the ankle injury. So things seem to be trending towards a Levis versus Stroud matchup on Sunday. Some other injury news for the Titans. Kyle Phillips has been a full participant with his hamstring injury the last couple of days. Jalen Duncan was a full participant with a wrist injury yesterday. So good to see on that front. Murphy Bunting limited the last couple of days dealing with a hip injury. Chris Moore with a rib injury, the limited participant. And Caleb Farley has been back out there. He's not going to play this year, but Caleb Farley also been back on the field. We've had some people ask about that this week too. So Farley is out there, but he is not going to play for the remainder of this season for the Titans. So interested to see what the offense looks like. Moore dealing with the rib injury. Obviously Kyle Phillips coming back as a full participant for the hamstring. Like is Phillips, is he going to be out there? Is he going to be playing on Sunday? Is he in the doghouse with the coaching staff? Is he falling out of favor with his role here? It's going to be interesting to see what that looks like, because there was a point this year where it kind of felt like he and Levis had some chemistry, and then they didn't, and then he wasn't playing, and he was inactive, and then when he was active, he had like a couple snaps in one game before the hamstring injury, so not much from Kyle Phillips, but the receiving room, interesting this week with Chris Moore a little bit banged up, and with Phillips back on the practice field with a hamstring injury.
Yeah, I mean, hey, you know how I feel.
We know.
Just let Kyle Phillips cook, man. Let him cook. But, I mean, I don't see what,
If it was up to you, it'd be NWI on one play, Kyle Phillips the next, just alternate every play.
Can you imagine that, that left-right combination of NWI Phillips, Phillips, right down the field. But seriously, it's not saying he's some great player, but I do think he could help the offense, and I think we've actually seen evidence of that even this year. So we'll see if that matters. The Duncan thing is interesting too, because Vrabel did indicate this week that, because when he was off on the sideline, I had no idea. They had not reported any injury. He wasn't being looked at or anything, and it was like, oh, they just benched Jalen Duncan for Andre Dillard. That tells you where things are.
Right.
Vrabel did indicate it wasn't just the risk. There was, it was performance related too. So, I mean, either way, that's tough. That's a tough situation. Now, I believe Will Anderson.
He has not practiced this week.
He has not practiced. So, they might end up going 0 for 2 on having to see him. He's going to be a very good pass rusher in this league and has been already.
Yeah, I mean that obviously is if he's back in there, that would be a problem for the Titans. He's not practiced so far this week. And look, he didn't play last time against them, and the Titans really struggled against that Houston front anyway. And by the way, you've got Tier Tart that you got to deal with coming up on Sunday as well, which that part of it's going to be pretty interesting. See how Tier Tart plays against his former team.
I'm trying to think of if there's anybody on the offensive line who might want to get into a shoving match with Tier Tart, because it's going to happen. Who would be most likely?
I mean,
Brewer.
I guess Brewer, but I don't know that would go overly well for him.
Yeah, no, that's true. Maybe Skoronski. Maybe Skoronski endears himself to Titans Nation and gets into a scrap with Tier Tart. But yeah, look, I mean, the thing is, in all seriousness, I love that pickup for the Texans.
I agree.
Down the stretch here, I mean, that guy can play. I mean, that guy can help a team. So I'm sure he's going to be extremely one-arm push-upping this week in advance of this game. You see this text from Alex? 10-hour drive ahead of me in Washington, D.C. Penalty Box Radio is on the road. Can you extend Robby and Rexrode 5 to 6 hours to keep me entertained? Also, shout out to Connor Newt, best producer, Wednesdays at 7 p.m. He's not actually just driving there for like the Caps game, right?
He is.
Just for the Caps game?
Yeah. He's going up for the Caps game, coming back. He told me the other day he's going up today. He's there for the Caps game tomorrow. He's coming back Sunday. It's dedication. I like it.
I need more information. Like, is he going to at least go, like, see, the Lincoln Memorial or something? Like,
I don't know.
at least go to the mall? Go to the Smithsonian?
Hey, there's not all, you gotta watch some hockey. There's not all the time for all that stuff. Some of us work.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, congrats, Alex. And no, we will not extend Robby and Rex show. But we'll have Willie Donick on in place of me here soon, which will increase the entertainment value of the show. So apparently Willie is a Hall of Fame, Winter Park Hall of Famer. I didn't realize this.
Yeah, big athlete down there in Winter Park, which is, 20 minutes outside Orlando, maybe?
Something like that. I mean, he looked kind of imposing in that picture.
He did. Willie Donick, high-level athlete, as we've known here on this program. Right. Speaking of high-level athletes, DeAndre Hopkins, not much last week. Not really a whole lot the week before against Houston either. With Levis coming back in there, you think. Interested to see if they can get him going on Sunday. He's closing in on 1,000 yards, which, as we know, Joe, 1,000-yard seasons for Titans receivers don't happen too often around here. He's closing in on it. I'm going to pull up his numbers and see exactly how far away he is. I think he's like 40 or 60 yards away. Yep, 939 yards. So he's 61 yards away from reaching 1,000 yards for the season. Interested to see if they can get him going. I think teams have done a pretty good job the last couple of weeks of somewhat taking him out of the plan offensively, and I'm interested to see if the Titans can find a way around that on Sunday against Houston.
Well, the thing is, it's actually amazing it hasn't happened more, this year. I mean, It's a credit to him that he's been able to produce despite being on an island, basically, this season in the passing game, with as rough as it's been on passers to stay upright. I mean, it's pretty impressive. So I'm sure it'll be a point of emphasis. By the way, has he been back to Houston? Has he played in that stadium since that brilliant trade by Bill O'Brien?
That's a great question. I know he's played against them. I think they played against them with Arizona, but I don't know that it was – I can't remember if it was at Arizona or if it was at Houston. That's an interesting question.
Yeah, if anybody knows, I know we can easily look this up on the internet, but that is interesting. First of all, talk about a highlight video that he should get. My goodness, if this is his first time back. And, also, I mean, it's got to be personal for him. This is always a personal game for Titans ownership, of course, and I think for Titans fans too, just because of the discourse on the Oilers uniforms and everything like that. But big deal for Hop too, I would think, to play against them and want to perform, produce, and obviously win.
Well, last time against Houston, he had 2 catches for 21 yards on 9 targets. So, I mean, they were trying to throw the ball to him. I mean, in some cases, Levis trying to throw it to him probably a little bit too much last time out against Houston, and they just couldn't find the connection. Last time out against Seattle, when Tannehill was the quarterback, 2 catches for 20 yards on 4 targets. So not as many targets for Hopkins, which is kind of weird. Like, you look throughout the season here. I mean, it's clear Levis, wherever Hopkins goes, he's looking that way. Like, he's trying to find Hopkins. The Miami game, he was targeted 12 times. Indy game, he was targeted 12 times. Houston game, he was targeted 9 times. And then last week, he's targeted 4 times. I would imagine with Levis presumably being back in there, it feels like Hopkins has basically been his security blanket. I'd imagine the target's going to go back up this week.
Yeah, you would think so. And again, you want to have more targets. You need to get first downs. You need to convert third downs. You need to have longer drives. So you need to get Kyle Phillips the ball. There you go. That's my
it always circles back.
That's right. That's my secret formula. Derrick Henry, of course. How far away is he from 1,000? He is really close to it. With 36 yards, something like that. I don't have it right in front of me. Very close to 1,000. So both, Henry and Hopkins both
28 yards away from 1,000.
28 yards. Yep. Okay, my bad. So both those guys can hit 1,000, which would be, a big deal. That's one of those things too. Like if you went into the season and said Hopkins and Henry both 1,000 yards, receiving and rushing, what's the Titans' final record? I would have a better record in mind than the one they have.
I'll throw one more at you. So Hopkins more than 1,000 yards receiving, Henry end up with more than 1,000 yards rushing. and Tajay Spears with more than 1,000 yards from scrimmage, what would you think the Titans' record would be?
A little better. How about throw in Harold Landry will have 7.5 sacks just in the fourth quarter with 2 games left in the 2023 season. Second in the league only to Trey Hendrickson's 8.
Yeah.
Throw that stat in there too.
It's pretty wild.
What are you thinking? I mean, I'm like, oh my God, are they going to be the 1 seed?
And look, Spears has not gotten there yet, but I mean, let's do some quick math here. 428 plus 315. So he's at 745 yards total. So, I mean, he could end up right around, 900 yards total when it comes to passing and receiving by the end of the year. Or, excuse me, rushing and receiving by the end of the year.
Pretty good. I mean, and that's the thing. I mean, I find with Tajay Spears, I find that there's still a pretty wide range of opinions. Some people like Kaharski, he's a curmudgeon about a lot of things, but he's not all that impressed. I'm impressed. I think he's good. I don't think that he's like, oh, next year give the entire offense to him. He needs to have someone with him, but I think you feel good about that half of the backfield.
Travis with a late called shot on the text line says Henry will not reach 1,000 yards this week. Greenard/Tart are going to feast. So that means Derrick Henry would not reach 28 yards rushing, which I believe last time out against the Texans he had 9. So
yeah,
that could happen.
It could. I mean, if they stuff him twice, it still doesn't make up for all the times that he made them look like an FCS team as he ran the ball for Alabama in a September or like the week before the Auburn game.
Yeah.
But it tells you a little bit about the regime change there and what that has meant to their defense, right?
615-737-1025, our phone number, 615-737-1025. We'll continue to take your thoughts on the Titans and Texans coming up on Sunday. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Join Jared Stillman, Chris Sanders, and Derek Mason at Twin Peaks in Cool Springs this Sunday from 9:30 to 11:30 for our NFL pregame show. They'll break down the Titans' Week 17 matchup against the Texans and give you the latest updates before the game. Our NFL pregame show presented by Parman Tractor and Equipment and Beast Unleashed. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. By the way, Joe, Tim on the text line says, 40-year strawberry Pop-Tart eater. I bought a box of frosted cherry due to your recommendation. I think you're going to be happy, Tim. I think it's going to go well for you.
Yeah, I'd like to hear what you think. I got my blueberry about ready to go here, so maybe I'll eat that once I return from the Vols press conference here in a minute.
Did we ever nail down whether or not you went to the Pop-Tart Bowl last night?
I didn't go. We were we went to dinner instead with Adam Sparks and Iowa writer Scott Docterman, but we did watch it where we were, if that counts. And then we came back and then we got Pop-Tarts. So I mean, we still sort of participated. Alex, by the way, apparently a writer lives in DC, and also they got a sponsor. So that's
beautiful.
Okay. Thank you. Good job, Alex. All right. Enjoy DC. I do hope you get to see some of the sights.
I hope so, too.
Along with the hockey.
That's right. Well, Willie Donick coming up at 7:30. We'll look ahead to the Preds and Red Wings coming up tonight in the Motor City. Big back-to-back this weekend. Preds in Detroit tonight, in Washington tomorrow for a couple of Eastern Conference matchups. So Willie Donick will join us coming up here at 7:30. Right now, taking your thoughts on the Titans and the Texans. It's going to be fun if it's Levis and Stroud, Joe. I mean, it'd be the first time this year that we have seen, the rookie quarterbacks go against each other in terms of either Levis versus Richardson or Levis versus Stroud. Now, Levis has gone against Lawrence to this point, and that did not go well for the Titans, but it would be the first matchup between two of the rookies that have been selected this year with Levis and with Stroud. So interested to see if Levis can end up going. We know Stroud's going to play. If Levis gets through today and he can end up going on Sunday, I think that's some intrigue that Titans fans are looking for when you're 5-10 and you're not making the playoffs and you're kind of playing out the stretch here. At least a nice Levis versus Stroud matchup for Titans fans to spice things up this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. It would make it a lot more fun. It's, you got all of a sudden, you got Nico for the Vols, you got Levis for the Titans. This is, these are your hopeful future great quarterbacks. Leading teams back to glory. And like I said earlier about Stroud, Stroud's rookie of the year. Stroud he has had some fantastic games. He looks better than what I thought. I think I underrated him. I'm also just like with all of these guys, like we'll see, I think it's very promising though. And look, I think that to a lesser degree with less of a sample size and way less help, it's been promising for Will Levis.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the Stroud part of this has been really interesting because he's had just some monster games this year. I mean, you go back and you look at some of the games that he's had, it's been epic. To your point, though, he's had a couple where it's not been very good either. And look, he's a rookie quarterback, so you expect that to some degree. But like the Titans going out there, I thought they did a decent job defensively for most of the game on Sunday against Seattle, and then the Seahawks eventually just decided that they were going to throw the ball wherever Trey Avery was lined up, and that ended up working out pretty well for him at the end of the game. So can the Titans find a way with the bodies that they have available to them at this point to hang in there and not let C.J. Stroud just have another one of those huge games at home, which he's had a couple of times this year? If the Titans are going to hang in there, it's going to require the defense to come, and specifically the secondary, to come up with a nice performance. It would be nice for this to be a game on Sunday against a pretty good offensive line, Joe, where that pass rush finds a way to be dominant, which they have not been often enough this year, but which we have seen a little bit more signs of lately with Landry kind of coming into his own at the end of the season. Autry's played well lately. Like, they need that pass rush to get after Stroud on Sunday because, obviously the Titans secondary right now is limited with the bodies that they have available. Fulton's out. Murphy Bunting's been dealing with a hip injury, and he's been a limited participant all week. So if you don't have him, if he can't go on Sunday, you're talking about a really limited secondary at that point.
Right. I mean, he's a huge storyline for the secondary. I mean, Wallace as well has been banged up, but he was full participant yesterday. Trey Avery was a full participant with a knee yesterday. I mean, the injury report at this time of year is and now some of the injury report is rest. I mean, Quentin Bohanna, dude's okay. I guess it wasn't rest. I thought he got a rest day. I'm like, that dude just got here and he got a rest day. Impressive, but it was a personal day that he missed, so he didn't practice yesterday. You know, Derrick Henry gets his rest day as usual and things like that, and Autry as well. But you know, Murphy Bunting's a big deal because remember the Titans didn't see Nico Collins first time around, and he was a full participant yesterday. He's got a calf. Remind me, someone, Tank Dell. What is Tank Dell's situation?
Let's see here.
I think he's not on the report, so I assume that he returned since they came here.
I would assume so.
Okay, so I mean, you're talking a pretty different looking offense when you have Dell and Collins, you know, both on the field. You know, I understand that Robert Woods has been a nice addition for them and all that, but you know,
He hasn't played
he had a
since
rest day too.
December 3rd. So
Tank Dell has not.
yeah,
So maybe he's on IR and I didn't
Could be.
realize it. Okay. Well, then, I mean, that's, you know, and yeah, when things were going really well, like the Stroud game that stands out is like, holy cow, is the comeback against the Bucks at home. That was an astounding performance. That won him Rookie of the Year. And again, he should win it. It's just, let's not pretend like this is a consistent every week thing, and also that, you know, that this doesn't have something to do with what's around him. So, but Tank Dell, which is a guy who we talked about last year he is on IR, so that's too bad. But you know, let's not pretend like it's a fractured fibula. So there you go. That's a big hit. And again, when they came here, so obviously he at that point had been put on IR. He got put on IR December 3rd. You know, and then Collins, who has been a breakout player this year for them, that's a huge difference for their offense.
well, you know,
Not to mention that they didn't have Stroud.
Well, even Noah Brown has had some moments this year where he's been pretty darn good out there. He's been limited all week with a knee injury, but they've had
And
some.
Schultz is a stud.
Yeah,
Stud tight end. That's a legit tight end one.
They've had receivers step up in a way that I don't think a lot of people expected. There's no question about that. And look, Stroud deserves credit for that. I mean, obviously, you know, he's elevated those guys to some degree, but they've certainly had guys step up that, you know, probably looking at the season, looking at the roster heading into the season, nobody really expected this level of production that they got. Let me clarify something that I said earlier because I did a poor job of explaining it. Levis and Bryce Young have played against each other. I mean, in the division, in the AFC South, the rookie quarterbacks that were selected. I did a poor job of explaining that.
Well, when you said
So
that, I was like, no, what? Good job. I knew what you meant. I did wonder, like, we should, like, Stroud and Richardson really early didn't play.
They may have. I'm talking for the Titans. So, again, just a terrible job of explaining things. It's a 7 o'clock hour. Nothing counts.
Well, I guess I didn't get what you meant. Yeah, that's right. 7 o'clock hour doesn't count, man. It's 8 o'clock hour for me.
It is. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. Joe, you are taking off for the next about half hour here and heading down to Tennessee press conferences in advance of the Citrus Bowl coming up.
Yep. Wrote a column about Nico, but you know what? How about some more questions about Nico? Why not? Let's just keep talking about Nico. Nico.
We'll have a nice update on Nico and the Tennessee Volunteers live from Orlando when Rexrode returns to the program coming up in the 8 o'clock hour. Rexrode, have fun at the press conferences. Coming up next.
I'll bring my Pop-Tarts.
You should. Coming up next, we'll be joined by Willie Donick. He is live in Detroit in advance of the Predators and the Red Wings coming up tonight. Big back-to-back coming up this weekend for the Predators. Tonight in Detroit, they'll take on Washington tomorrow. On Saturday for the back-to-back set there. A couple Eastern Conference opponents with some big points on the line. Willie is coming up next. Make sure you tune in to 94.9 The Fan tomorrow for Vanderbilt men's basketball. Commodores taking on Dartmouth at home. Tip-off at 4 o'clock. Pregame beginning at 3:30. Coverage also available on the 94.9 The Fan app. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Connor Newt here with you on this Friday morning. Preds in action tonight, taking on the Detroit Red Wings. Back in action tomorrow, taking on Washington. So a back-to-back set coming up from the Predators on the road. And to help us talk more about that, we go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. And welcome in the man, the myth, the legend, Willie Donick to the program. Willie, good morning. How are you?
I am doing well. Thanks for having me, Robbie.
Absolutely.
Checking it out here downtown Detroit. Looks a little bit like Gotham City here, a little cloudy, a little foggy, but it's a great night for a hockey game.
Well, Willie, the rumor is that Rexrode is off in his hotel in Orlando doing some interviews with the Vols right now, but I wonder if he slipped out to Winter Park for the Winter Park High School Hall of Fame to check out the nice shrine to Willie Donick that's in the building.
Well, all he has to do is just travel down the road one town over from Orlando and head over. It's a beautiful area, Park Avenue. Go to the farmer's market, and he will see the shrine, which I hope is still standing. I haven't been there in a long time, so I'm assuming it's still there.
I'm sure. How could they remove something like that? It's got to still be there. There's no question about that.
It should be high on his list of Joe. I mean, we got to get our priorities straight. I mean, this press conference, is it really that big of a deal?
It's really not.
He has a chance to see the real deal.
No question about it. So, Willie, an interesting one with Detroit tonight. So Patrick Kane signs with the Red Wings, and the Red Wings were playing really well. They looked like they were going to compete for a playoff spot this year, and they still may do that, but they have lost 9 of 11 since Patrick Kane has come into the fold here. He's played really well. I mean, I've watched him play a fair amount, and he looks really good. But what do you make of this matchup tonight for the Predators against a Red Wings team that has struggled to keep the puck out of their own net as of late, although they've got a lot of firepower offensively?
Yeah, they definitely can score. It hasn't been because Patrick Kane hasn't contributed, as you mentioned, and I'm looking forward to seeing what that looks like, just Patrick Kane in that uniform. And it's been something pretty simple, it looks like, right? It's just flat-out defense and goaltending.
Yeah.
Now, they are going to get the best of their 3 goalies back tonight in Alex Lyon. He is going to start. He's been the better option than Billy Husso, who's been injured, and James Reimer, who has been really struggling lately. So Alex Lyon will be back in there. He hasn't played in a couple of weeks, and so I think that's going to be the key for Detroit is can they get him in there and get him comfortable, and maybe he can give them a lift. But you're right. They've been struggling after really for the first time getting the fans really excited here. Like since they opened Little Caesars Arena in Detroit, they haven't had a great team. So I know for me, I've never been to a game in Detroit where you really see the true Red Wings fans, hopping. They've been rebuilding for a long, long time. And, we've talked about it, Robbie, before, the different types of ways teams rebuild, not just in hockey, but any sport, especially with a salary cap. But whatever the Red Wings have tried to do, the patience, the long view, it's taken a long time. And these fans are really hungry for success.
No question about that. So, Willie, the Predators, they go on that stretch where they win 13 out of 16 games. They're one of the hottest teams in the NHL. They've come back. They lose to Vancouver. The heartbreaker against Dallas, where you're right on the cusp of a victory, and then you don't end up getting a point out of it. And then the other night, you put up a ton of shots against Carolina. The penalty kill just kind of lets you down. They score 3 goals on the power play, and now you've lost 3 of your last 4 here. Just overall, what do you make of what you've seen from the Predators as of late? It feels to me like there's just little bitty details in a couple of these games that have cropped up that they've not handled well, and that's been the difference as of late.
Yeah, it's been a theme in the games that they've lost. There's been a lot of games where Andrew Brunette has said the same thing. He said, you know what, these are a lot of games where we've done on the ice things well enough to get something out of it, whether it's a win or at least get the game to overtime. And it hasn't happened. So it's an odd record to have at this time of the year, right? 19 and 16 or whatever. Is that right?
19-16.
No overtime losses.
Yeah.
They've done really well in the games that have gone to overtime, but not a lot of games have gone to overtime compared to some other teams. So it's really all or nothing. So it's a really odd situation. But I think the attention to detail, and when they went through the stretch where they won 13 of 16, 14 of 18, the attention to detail most of the time was really on point and what they needed it to be. But in the game against Carolina, for example, that was a good example of the 5-10 start, where they had really good stretches of the game where they were outplaying a really, really talented team up and down. But they had lapses within the game that cost them, some very undisciplined penalties at the wrong time. And as you mentioned, Carolina, a red-hot power play. And then you combine that with some odd goals that, one bounced off of Luke Shen, where maybe he's not in the perfect position to block the shot the way he should have been. Maybe not the sharpest night from UC Saros, a couple of seeing eye pucks, and all of a sudden you're down 5-2 at the end of the second period, where you're looking around going, wait a minute, we've outshot these guys by 10 shots. We've got better chances than they do, but we're down by 3. There were several of those games in the first 15 games.
Willie, for me, the power play has been pretty fun to watch this year. Andrew Burnett, even coming into the season, he's been heralded as this power play guy, and he worked with the Devils power play and the Panthers power play, obviously, and really 2 successful units that he's dealt with there. It's been fun to watch this power play kind of come along this year, and with some of the puck movement they have on it right now. I mean, they scored the goal the other night with Sissons crashing the net and then O'Reilly picking up the rebound there. The power play feels like, with both the personnel that they've kind of settled into here, and also the way that Andrew Burnett wants to handle it, it feels like the power play has a chance to be a nice weapon for the Predators the rest of the year.
I think it's encouraging that they can sustain what they've done, because if you look at the analytics, it's not just that they're clicking around 20%, but the numbers would tell you that they're getting pretty good pressure consistently, game in and game out. And you made a couple of good points there. Like Colton Sissons, I don't think I would have had on my list of players that could spark the power play before the year started. But Colton Sissons has been a really nice ingredient, and he's found a good spot playing alongside Ryan O'Reilly at the net front. So Andrew Burnett, I think, has been very creative, finding the right pieces. And as you mentioned, that they have a lot of good looks. And so every night, it's not like they're in the top 10 of the league, but they've been consistent at getting a timely power play goal when they need it. And they've hovered right around 20% all year long. It's not like they've gone for a long stretch of a dry spell and then got hot for a few games to get it to 20%. It's pretty consistent if you look game in and game out. So I think that's pretty encouraging. And that's one thing I know was a constant topic last year, right? 2 years ago, They had a great power play. Last year, the power play really was a big reason they didn't make the playoffs.
No question about that. So, Willie, on the Cody Glass front, it's been a rough year for him in terms of he has the injury, he comes back, and immediately has another upper body injury that keeps him sidelined. He's been trying to catch a moving train of sorts coming back from those injuries, and the production just really hasn't been there at this point. So what have you seen from Cody Glass, and what do you feel like he needs to do to kind of take that next step to being more of a consistent producer for this team, which we saw at times a year ago?
Yeah, he's a guy that I think in the big picture is certainly an important piece. And, Nick Keyser had a really nice article with him, just this where Cody, I thought, really was open, just talking about how much he has struggled. The injuries have made it difficult on him, and it's affected his confidence a little bit. And I looked at the other night in Carolina, and my observation was he's almost trying too hard, right? He wants to excel and produce so bad for his team that sometimes when you try too hard, you make mistakes. He committed a couple of those penalties that we were talking about. He's right there trying to make a play, but maybe he's a half second late. And then you see it affecting his confidence a little bit more. So I'm a big believer in him. I think if he can get over the hump, he'll get there. But he's really having trouble, getting that foundation to the game to allow what he does well to come out, right? And so Andrew Burnett's trying to give him an opportunity to get in there and contribute, but he hasn't played very well, and there's not an open spot, right? They've got competition for the spots in there, so I'm not sure he's going to be in there tonight. But somewhere along the line, you hope he's going to light a little fire, and he'll start building his game the way I think he's capable of.
Willie, last thing for you here. On the Forsberg front, it's slowed down a little bit for him lately. He doesn't have a goal in his last 5 games, but continually is dangerous. He had the chance against Dallas that he put just off the post that could have iced the game there, but it feels like the chemistry with him and O'Reilly has been instant from the jump this year. What do you think it is about that combination? And I'll throw Nyquist in there too because I think he fits in really well. What do you think it is about that trio that's allowed them to be so productive?
It really is something, again, that I don't think we could have predicted, the chemistry between those three. And they are in a little bit of a lull right now, especially the 5-on-5. If you look at Forsberg's goals, he had the dramatic run of overtime goals, but at even strength, they're in a little bit of a lull here. So they've got that's hopefully something that will come back around because I think those are 3 very good players. And I think they need that second wave, right? Tommy Novak, Kiefer Sherwood, Luke Evangelista. That's a very important line that has not really clicked since the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
So that they need to get that secondary scoring to support Forsberg. But I think even when Forsberg isn't scoring, what I'm seeing is a guy that's really engaged at both ends of the ice. He's not having games where he's drifting and not a factor. I think even when he's not scoring, you see him winning puck battles in the defensive end, working hard in the corner. He's not just going for the finesse, real high skill goals that you see on the highlight reels. He's got those. We always know that. But he's got the ability to power smaller defensemen and things like that. And so for whatever reason, and I don't know if I could have predicted it, his game meshes with those other 2 players real well. O'Reilly, because O'Reilly's going to grind. He's going to get to that net front. And Nyquist has got that good hockey IQ. And so it's really made for a really good, consistent line. And so let's see if they can get cranking up tonight.
Well, Willie, enjoy yourself tonight in Detroit, tomorrow in Washington. Fun weekend of hockey coming up for the Predators. And thanks for being with us this morning. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks a lot, Robbie.
Absolutely. Willie Donick, our guest here on Robby and Rexrode. You can check him out every morning from 11 to 2 here on Caroline, Willie, and D-Mace as well. And, of course, play-by-play on Bally Sports for the Nashville Predators television broadcast. Coming up next, it's time for the Rob Rant. We'll take your thoughts as always. 615-737-1025, our phone number. That'll be next. Make your silly underdog picks today for your chance to win weekly prizes. You can play at theGameNashville.com or the 1025 The Game app. Silly underdog picks presented by Volunteer Hose and Gasket. This is Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063 The Game.
Don't make me angry.
Sometimes you have to tell someone to pound sand.
You wouldn't like me when I'm angry.
This is the Rob Rant. Now on Robby and Rexrode.
Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. It is that time of the day, time for the Rob Rant here on Robby and Rexrode. You can check it out every morning at 7:45, either the Rex Rant or the Rob Rant. Bobby Stanley, Connor Newt here with you on this Friday morning. Joe Rexrode will be back here in just a few minutes. He is wrapping up some Tennessee Volunteers media press conferences down in Orlando. So we'll get a report from Joe coming up here in just a few minutes. Connor, I just want to kind of double down on some things we were just talking to Willie about. So he brought up the Forsberg line, and they are going through a little bit of a lull offensively right now. They need Novak and Evangelista and Parsonen and some of these younger guys to step it up a little bit. And I think Tomasino has been coming on a little bit lately, and he's been playing better, and the goals have started going for him, and he's been dangerous, and I think has earned some more ice time here. So I'm interested to see what happens with him. It's been a little bit slow out of the gate from Novak since coming back from the injury, and they're reaching a point right now with their lineup where they need some of these secondary guys to start putting the puck in the back of the net. This is they're at a critical juncture of the season right now. There's still a ton of hockey left to be played. They've not even reached the halfway point yet. Having said that, they had gotten to a place here when they had won 13 out of 16 where they were comfortable in that kind of that first wild card spot. I think at one point they had a 5-point lead on like the Blues and the Wild and teams that are kind of nipping at their heels there. And now they've dropped to the second wild card spot after losing 3 out of 4. They're tied with Arizona at 38 points. The Blues 1 point behind them with 1 game in hand at 37 points. And the Wild 2 points back with 2 games in hand. So, it's still early. Some of you may be thinking, well, why are we looking at the standings right now? They've played 35 games. But you're getting to kind of the midpoint of the season here where you can do a lot of moving. And, kind of the end of December, early part of January before the All-Star break, some really important games where you can start to see the standings shift a little bit. And, look, Forsberg was carrying this team offensively for basically the first part of this year, and he's had some games where he's just kind of single-handedly drug them along offensively. It's time for guys like Parsonen and Novak and Evangelista to start putting the puck in the back of the net a little bit more than they have been, and I'm interested to see tonight if they can start to get some scoring from some of those guys. Like, Parsonen, honestly, to me, has been a little bit underwhelming this year. I had some higher expectations than what we've seen. And we've seen it at times from him when he uses that body and he uses the size that he brings to the table. He's tough to deal with. I don't think he's done that enough. It almost had a beautiful goal the other night against Carolina that just got kind of stuffed on the doorpost there. But a little bit more consistency, I think, needed from Novak, from Parsonen, from Evangelista, because part of this year is figuring out what you have in some of those young guys. And you expect to go through some peaks and valleys with them throughout the course of an 82-game season. Novak specifically, though, like coming back from the injury, it's been a little bit of a tough start for him, and he's got the contract to get figured out at the end of the year. Connor, I'm interested tonight against Detroit if they can start to get some of these young guys going.
Absolutely. And I 100% agree with you. But let me throw another guy at you that needs to get going. Cody Glass.
Yeah, for sure.
I know he's been battling a little bit of an injury bug throughout the season, but I thought a couple of nights ago when he scored that garbage time goal, I thought, okay, maybe this might be his confidence booster. Maybe he'll get going. But I haven't seen anything out of him yet. So I'm really interested to see Cody Glass get going. And Tomasino has really been coming in. He's been getting a little bit hotter recently, but I feel like he can be that perennial goal scorer that they need coming off the second and third line.
Yeah, Tomasino looks like he's playing better. Glass is, you're right. It's crucial that they get him going. He's got 2 points in 15 games. He had the 1 garbage time goal against Vancouver last week that you mentioned there. And you have to factor in the whole picture, right? Like, it's been a tough year for him in terms of the injury. So he gets hurt. He misses a few weeks, and then he comes back, and I think a game or two later, he gets hurt again. So it's been
a tough go of things for him from an injury standpoint this year. Now, having said that, he has played 15 games, and he's just not been dangerous. Like, he's not been dangerous with the puck. And the other night against Carolina, like, I agree with what Willie said. It kind of felt like he was trying to do too much, and, he's kind of crashing in the offensive zone there. Takes an interference penalty, 160 feet away from your own net. Takes a tripping penalty in the offensive zone. So that's 2 penalties the other night from Cody Glass in the offensive zone when you're 150, 160 feet away from your own net that you just can't take. And you put Carolina on the power play. They cash in on, I think, one of those Cody Glass penalties. And you just can't have things like that. So it's a tough balance because you want him being aggressive and you want him trying to make things happen out there, but you also kind of have to play within the structure and within yourself. And I have to imagine, like, confidence-wise, it's been a tough go of things for him right now. He's got 2 points in 15 games. And, look, I have no idea. Like, tonight they played Detroit. Trennan was the odd man out the other night against Carolina. I think for the most part of late, Trennan's been pretty good. So I don't think you can keep him out of the lineup for too long. He's also a big part of the penalty kill, and the penalty kill gave up 3 power play goals the other night. So I would assume either tonight or tomorrow Trennan's going to be back in there. So does Cody Glass find himself as a healthy scratch again? And if so, what does that do for the confidence? At what point can he get going this year? It's a tough spot that Cody Glass is in right now.
Right, and he has to be frustrated with himself. But let me ask you a question on the defensive front.
Okay.
How much longer do you think the Tyson Barrie era in Nashville will be?
That's a really good question. I mean, he's day-to-day with an upper body injury, so it doesn't sound like it's too serious of a thing there. Problem with his situation right now is like the contract. So you look around the rest of the league, and the Predators, they've got a ton of cap space. There's a handful of other like Chicago's got a ton of cap space, but Chicago's not going to be interested, I don't think, in a guy like Cody Glass. You got the Sabres, you got Arizona, and then much past that, there's a lot of teams that are just up against it cap-wise. So you look at Barry's contract, I think it's hard for another team to take that on right now without making another corresponding move or without the Predators retaining some salary, which if I'm the Predators, I guess you're not totally opposed to doing that, but it's not necessarily something that you want to do. So to answer your question, I think this could drag on a little bit longer. I think it could drag on maybe a little bit closer to the deadline. I mean, look, the calendar is about to flip to January, so that's when you start to see some deals around the league get fired up and get going a little bit. But the contract situation that he's in right now, it's an expiring deal, but just the money that comes along with it, it's hard for other teams to take on right now. So I think he could be here for a little while longer. And, he's been okay when he's been in there lately. There's still, a defensive part of his game right now that feels like it's a liability when he's out there. And offensively, he's not getting the offensive power play time that he's been used to in his career. So I think that's limited what he's been able to do. Somebody's going to want him at some point. Like I still think he's a guy that can go in and can help a contender or maybe a fringe playoff team that needs another defenseman. He could come in and run a power play for you. So he'll get traded at some point here. I just think it could take a little bit longer. So I'm interested to see what happens on that front. Coming up next, Joe Rexrode will be back with us here on the program. He is live down there in Orlando, Florida. Tennessee in advance of the Citrus Bowl against Iowa. Press conference is going on this morning. Nico Iamaleava starting at quarterback for the Volunteers coming up on Monday at the Citrus Bowl. We'll get Rexrode's report live from Orlando coming up next. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Welcome back in. Final hour, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Proudly sponsored by Chuck McDowell and Medical House Calls, Middle Tennessee's best medical care in the comfort and safety of your own home. For more information, go to medicalhousecalls.com. Medical House Calls, where the nearest clinic is your home. We are live from our 102.5 The Game studio. Brought to you by Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Taking your thoughts all show long. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. Joe Rexrode back with us on the program, live from Orlando, fresh off what I'm sure were some thrilling press conferences by the Tennessee Volunteers in advance of their game against Iowa coming up on Monday in the Citrus Bowl. Joe, what did we learn down in Orlando?
Well, the moderator apologized. They were a couple minutes late, and he was out of breath. He said that he was still I don't remember if he said digesting or getting through all the Pop-Tarts.
Yep.
But now it's a transition to the the nice press conference, and they had the Cheez-It boxes right there next to them. So that's the first thing.
It's a heck of a transition.
Obviously, yes. So on to Cheez-Its. Now we go. Obviously, a lot of talk about Nico with Joey Halsley, a little bit with Cooper Mays. And Halsley had some interesting comments just about kind of going into a game like this. You try not to think about it in terms of this is a freshman quarterback, so I'm not doing this or that. It still is. It's game plan oriented. It's let's look at this defense with any quarterback. I think a good OC, and Halsley has talked about this. Alex Golesh has talked about this. OCs for other teams have talked about this. You go through different plays. What do you like? What don't you like? How comfortable are you with this and not with that? So there's been a lot of that. He sounded very confident that Nico has done all the work to be prepared and to have a legit start. This is going to be a heck of a first start. Iowa is really good. He also had some glowing comments on Cam Seldon and his maturity, and that's obviously a big thing, I think, for next year. Dylan Sampson is going to be the guy, but you go from at times I thought the three-back thing was a little much this year. I thought there were times when I would have rather seen Jalen Wright get the ball than anybody else, or at least Wright or Sampson and not Jabari Small. But now you lose Small and Wright, so it's going to be Sampson, Seldon, and then we'll see. That's going to be a big storyline. Tim Banks, here's a quote from Tim Banks. We'll see if you agree. He said, well, now I've lost it, but he basically said that he thinks the Vols played excellent defense all year.
Excellent defense all year? I don't know that I would agree with that.
See, now I need to find this. So I want to make sure I'm not misquoting anyone. The point he made was, you want to win every game. You want to play better, but no. XC, this is why it's important not to he said, quote, I think we played really good defense most of the year.
Okay.
He also later said, overall, I felt like we played outstanding. Along with that, a lot of we're going to go in the offseason, try to get better, analyze what we do well and what we don't, and things like that. He also said that James Pierce is just scratching the surface on how good he can be. If that's true,
well, that would be scary.
That would be scary for opponents next year, and what I would imagine will be Pierce's third and final season in college football. I think he's probably off to the NFL for next season if it goes as he and the Vols hope. I think he's that kind of a talent.
Well, if he continues on this trajectory, he could be a first-round pick. Like I think he's that good. He's a really good player. So, yeah, I mean, look, the Florida game, they were not good defensively. Now, the Texas A&M game, I thought they were very good. The second half of Alabama, they fell apart defensively. Missouri, they got shelled defensively. So, they certainly had their warts this year, particularly on the road.
They did not play great every game. Yeah,
no. So, it wasn't like this was some consistent stretch of really good defense for Tennessee throughout the year. They did have their moments where they looked really good. The story with them defensively, Joe, they got to get the secondary figured out at some point. And they've recruited there, and we'll see as some young guys start to get in there what that looks like. But it's really a spot, certainly in this game against Iowa, but even moving forward here, that doesn't have a whole lot of depth to it. They brought in the kid from Oregon State, so they've made a move there. But the secondary has been a problem for them for a couple of years now. They got to find a way to get that figured out under Heupel.
And that's the thing. That's a very good undercard Monday, Nico's the focus, of course, and Nico and how he looks against a really good opponent. That's the difference. If the Vols have good pass defense numbers in this game, you don't necessarily throw a parade because Iowa is absolutely awful.
Yep.
But Iowa has a physical offensive line. They can run it okay. I don't know that I like their chances to run on the Vols. They're going to, like Aaron Beasley just said, they're going to be in 13 personnel like a lot of the game, and 13 and 12, 2 and 3 tight ends. But Iowa does, obviously, they churn out NFL tight ends. They will throw to the tight ends. I mean, they're still going to put some pressure on the Vols. Who's going to stand out, even if, again, it's a little bit of an easier transition into playing college football than like Nico's going to get going against Iowa's defense? Ricky Gibson, Jordan Matthews, they need some of these guys to take big steps. You got to have more of your recruits, and I would say secondary for sure, but also offensive line.
Yep.
And receiver. More of your Squirrel White has been excellent, but more of your recruits out of high school who are able to develop into top SEC players. I don't think we've seen enough of that at those three positions, but especially in the back end. It's just been, and Jalen McCullough's going to play, one last game here, and he's been a solid veteran, but they've got to be better. They got to be able to have guys who have NFL potential playing in the back end.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question about that, and that's how you have to find a way to get yourself. You've talked about this before. There's not, with Tennessee's offense and the way that they run and how quickly they run things, I'm not sure that they're ever going to have like an elite of the elite defense. It's just, number one, it's hard to recruit that way and to have those type of guys. And number two, when you're on the field for as much as they are, like, it's just hard to do that. So, but I also don't think, like, if Nico is the quarterback that you hope he is and that you feel like he can be, then you also don't need the elite of the elite defense. Your offense should look more like the offense that we saw from Tennessee last season than this season if Nico is what they hope that it is. So you don't need an elite defense to go along that. You need a good defense. And if you can get to a level where you've got a good defense and your offense is what we saw more of from the Hendon Hooker offense last year, if Nico's that guy, then I think you're going to be fine if you're Tennessee. But if it's not, like if the offense isn't that, you got to find a way to make more plays in the back end. And Haddon, to his credit, Haddon, I thought last year wasn't very good. First part of this year, you had the Florida game where he just kind of sideswiped the guy on the way for the touchdown. After that, I thought Haddon was pretty good, and then he got hurt in the secondary. So they've had some moments there, but you got to find a way to get more consistent playmakers back there. And the other part is like forcing some interceptions, like forcing some turnovers. They got to get better at that with their secondary as well.
Yeah, to the point, and it's kind of the point I've been making about Iowa's defense, be very impressed because there's so much pressure on that defense every week because they know their offense is not hitting 20. But kind of to that point, you could look more favorably on Tennessee's defensive performance this year because it has been very different. Last year, I mean, it's just like, don't give up 50 and
right.
You're going to win, then they go out and we saw what happened at South Carolina, but the pressure was so much higher this year. And they did step up in some games. I thought they stepped up against South Carolina. I thought they stepped up big time in the Texas A&M game. Really, they played well for a lot of the Alabama game. But then you have a game like that Missouri game, which was close most of the day, but the offense just couldn't do anything. And then you finally just sort of break, and you break against Georgia too. It took a step this year. It's harder to see it because they went 8-4, but I think this defensive performance, this exact defense with last year's offense, that's the formula. So can you take another step on defense? Like you said, until we see a defense with this offense that's truly elite, I'm going to assume that there's a ceiling there that you don't necessarily have with other programs that don't run this offense. But if you can take another step from this defense in quality next year to pretty good, consistently pretty good to good, and then like you said, Nico's what you hope he is, then that's it. That's the formula to win most of your games.
We'll get Joe's perspective on Nico's press conference from yesterday, expectations for him heading into his first college start coming up on Monday against Iowa, and the offensive side of things for Tennessee. Coming up next, got some questions to get to on the text line as well. We'll do that. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. More of that coming up next. Tomorrow, tune in for the TransPerfect Music City Bowl on 1025 The Game as Auburn goes up against Maryland at Nissan Stadium. Pre-game coverage begins at noon, presented by Green Trees Company. Kickoff at 1 o'clock. Get your tickets today at MusicCityBowl.com. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Connor Newt here with you on this Friday morning. I got some tickets to give away to see the Preds take on the Chicago Blackhawks at Bridgestone Arena coming up on Tuesday, January the 2nd. Be caller number 3, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Call the 3 will win a pair of tickets to see the Preds take on the Blackhawks at Bridgestone Arena coming up on Tuesday, January the 2nd. Joe Rexrode live in Orlando. Vols taking on Iowa in the Cheez-It Bowl, Cheez-It Citrus Bowl, coming up on Monday. We got too many names in these things now. The Cheez-It Citrus Bowl.
Yeah, well, it is interesting because if you're Cheez-It, I mean, if I'm Cheez-It, I might be like, hey, man, I just want this to be called the Cheez-It Bowl. But the Citrus Bowl, of course, is the traditional, is what this used to be called forever. Now, then for a long time, it was the Capital One Bowl.
Yeah.
I meant to bring my hoodie from covering the Capital One Bowl in like '08, like Matt Stafford's last game. Pat Narduzzi against Matt Stafford. Oh, what a day that was.
Bet
Quite
it
a
was.
battle. Quite a battle. Yes, it was. Narduzzi gave him some trouble, man. He did. And then Stafford made a couple throws. You're like, oh, my God. Too bad he's going to the Lions. But the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl, yeah. I don't know if Cheez-It, Cheez-It, because I think last night was just the Pop-Tart Bowl, right?
I believe you're correct.
Yeah. It wasn't the Pop-Tart Champ Sports Bowl.
Was
it
not.
was just the Pop-Tart Bowl. So I guess a little Cheez-It, little citrus. It's a nice combination. A little acidity to cut through all the carbs. Very carby week here in Orlando.
Sounds like a great combo. Really does. So, Joe, you were there for the Nico press conference yesterday. What stood out to you about what he had to say, and what do you think are fair expectations for him as he makes his first college start against a defense in Iowa that is very, very good?
One thing that stood out about what he said was someone asked about Brew McCoy, and he's like, yeah, I'm trying to get Brew back, which is smart. And then Sparks and I were talking afterward. It's like maybe it can be like it's like Tom Brady, back in the day with the Pats, and he's like, we need to load up the roster, so I'll take less. Like Nico, push a little NIL money that way.
So.
Push a little. Tell Spire Sports, hey, go ahead and take a little bit of mine, give it to Brew. I need Brew. That would be a big deal for them to have Brew McCoy back. Squirrel White is a very good player. He's going to be back, and that's a great thing, but he needs more help. Brew McCoy back would be – and I think with Brew McCoy, I could make the case for him to come back if the NIL money's good enough, right? Because I don't think he's high draft pick. I think he'd be drafted somewhere.
Yeah.
You could make the case to him, come back, here's a nice chunk from Spire Sports, and you stay healthy, have a huge year. You got Nico throwing to you. No offense to Joe. Thanks, Joe. But you got Nico throwing to you. Your draft stock is going to be higher in a year. I think you could make that case to him. But Nico, I've always been impressed with him talking. He's a very affable, easygoing guy. The height when you're close. I mean, he is all of 6'6". He's all of 6'6". He still, to me, looks very skinny. I asked him what he was doing about his nutrition, and it's the protein shakes and crushing a PB&J before he goes to bed. And he says he's put on about 15 pounds, so that's good news. That's part of why he didn't play this year. But he sounds ready to go. And you talk to other guys. Of course, we had Bryson Eason yesterday saying he's a super tall Bryce Young. So there's that. I guess
no
for
pressure.
People who've yeah, exactly. Another California quarterback compared to Bryce Young. Of course, some people who don't understand how crappy the Panthers are may not think that's a good thing, but those are people who don't know anything about football. And
he's actually a younger Tom Brady.
Yeah. Well, Squirrel White made the Mahomes comparison for me, so I wrote that. Now he didn't say, I know he didn't say he's like Patrick Mahomes, but apparently one of these bowl practices, he did the no look pass thing to the point where it startled a receiver who dropped the ball, but it was a perfect pass. And the quote Squirrel gave me was, I said, "What the crap?"
I'm sure that's what he said.
Yeah. I don't know. Squirrel is the type of guy, he may not swear too much. He's like Kirk Cousins or something.
Yeah.
But Nico has been impressive in the bowl practices. Like, he's got the talent. It's just everyone's got to just keep the expectations reasonable and not overreact either way. If he has some huge plays, I mean, I'll be impressed if he comes out there Monday and has a big day throwing the ball against Iowa and doesn't turn it over and plays a great game. That's really good sign. It doesn't mean you should get ready for a natty next year, but it's a really good sign. If Iowa makes him look like a freshman quarterback, I also would not start shoveling dirt on next season. It kind of, in a way, you could look at it and say that could be the kind of moment that could end up helping his growth, right? This is a very tough first assignment. So I'm excited to just see him, what he looks like with a game plan as the starter, having been able to look at a defense and do all the prep and everything and get plays that are designed for him in a game plan, all that stuff. We haven't seen that. We've seen him go out there here and there, and I think look good. Look good throwing it, look good running around. He is twitchy. He is quick. He's got all the tools, but I'm very excited to see him in this kind of assignment. He will next year have a lot of Saturdays that will not be as challenging as what Iowa will be throwing at him Monday.
Michael on the text line says, if we get Evan Stewart in the portal and Brew McCoy comes back in the receiver room, it'll be far too packed. Can some of those guys transfer out in the spring? This from Michael on the text line. By the way, Evan Stewart transferring apparently from Texas A&M. Tennessee's been linked to him. And then, of course, there's the Brew McCoy decision as well.
And others. Evan Stewart is a hotly pursued guy right now. That would be a huge addition for Tennessee. And to your question, yes, there is another window. I believe you can't do the SEC thing, right? If I'm correct. So the SEC movement in conference, if I'm right on that, like this window, then it's a different window. But yes, there was a window, and I agree. I mean, look, some of these guys, I think Chaz Nimrod has talent. I think Caleb Webb has talent. There's Laycock. There's Mike Matthews coming in. So, but we also know that Josh Heupel likes to take three and go with those three, and everybody else be ready to help here and there. The fourth guy will play a little, but that's what he likes to do. A McCoy, Squirrel, Evan Stewart trio, that'd be pretty good. But I think you really want either one of those guys to emerge. Maybe Mike Matthews comes in and he's just electric as a freshman. That could certainly happen. I mean, Squirrel White came right as a freshman. It was like, yep, he's playing.
Yep.
So that all could happen. But yes, I do think to your point about the portal, yes, I think that there's probably at least a guy or two who may end up elsewhere in that receiver room. It's getting crowded, and not crowded enough with guys who are demanding to be on the field with their performance.
I'm interested to see, if they get to a place where they get some of these guys either in the portal or McCoy comes back, can they get some depth at wide receiver? Because we've seen it when everybody's healthy, three guys basically play, and every now and then they'll throw in a fourth. But can they get to a point where there's a little bit of a rotation there, or is Heupel just dead set on, hey, we're playing the best three guys most of the time, and that just is what it is? I don't know.
Yeah, it's a good question. You want more functional depth, I would think. And the way things have worked out, it doesn't necessarily mean, like, if you go back, Keaton is a guy who I think is an example of like good functional depth last year, right? Like, he was ready to go when Tillman got hurt, and he did a great job. So you need at least a guy like that as your four, where you could plug that guy in. And obviously this year they just didn't have enough, especially when McCoy got hurt. They just were not good enough at all. And Keaton included. I mean, Keaton just had too many drops this year, especially of like gimme. I mean, he had touchdowns he forfeited that he could have moonwalked into the end zone. So you just got to have more consistency. I mean, Squirrel White is going to be a really, really good player next year. So but it's almost like people take him for granted already.
615-737-1025, our phone number, 615-737-1025. Coming up next, it's time for Pigskin Pick'em here on Robby and Rexrode. The competition is getting fierce. We will pick Tennessee and Iowa coming up in the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl. Titans and Texans taking place this weekend as well. And the college football playoff. We'll get to all that and more. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Now, it's time for Pigskin Pick'em with Robby and Rexrode on ESPN 1025 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
It is that time of the week, time for Pigskin Pick'em here on 1025 The Game. And what a competition we've got heading into the heart of bowl season. Joe Rexrode, college football playoff coming up this weekend, and we are right on the doorstep of the NFL playoffs as well. Last week, Joe Rexrode leading the way, 3-3. No lock for Rexrode. I was 2-4. No lock. Keezer with the goose egg. 0-6 for Nick Keezer a week ago. Was leading the competition and now has fallen back, Joe Rexrode. The standings are as follows. You have regained your lead. 52-50 overall. 6-11 on your locks. 58 points. Nick Keezer also 52-50 overall. 5-12 on his locks. 57 points. Myself, 49-53, terrible record. 7-10 on my locks, 56 points. So you have 58, Keezer 57, I'm at 56. What a competition as we enter the final few weeks.
Well, there's a new sheriff in town.
There was a sheriff in town at one point earlier this year that was leading by like 13.
Yes, that's true. He got sent away and he's back, at least for a week.
With that in mind, let's begin with the Titans and the Texans coming up on Sunday. Texans favored by 4.5. Joe Rexrode, you are in first place. Who do you have in this one between Houston and Tennessee?
I do like the Titans' chances a bit more with Levis. I think this is a big, big deal. First of all, it's interesting now that we've seen Levis and Tannehill both play. Look, Levis can do some stuff throwing the ball down the field that Tannehill can't do. And I guess it wasn't as apparent to me maybe before. And I think Levis is really into this. He's into everything. And so I think he's going to give them a better chance if he plays as we presume is happening. But I think the Texans win by about a touchdown. Give me the Texans.
So going with Texans minus 4.5. Nick Keezer also going with the Texans minus the 4.5 as well. I'm going Titans. I think the Texans are going to win.
Ooh.
But I'm going Titans plus the 4.5. I think it's going to be close. I think Houston wins by a field goal in this one. So I'll take the Titans plus the 4.5.
Okay.
We'll see how that goes. That could be very bad news for the Titans. Iowa taking on Tennessee in the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl. Joe, you're going to be live down there and in person for Nico Iamaleava's first start. Here's my first time all week. I screwed it up. It's a pretty good run.
You had a good week.
Vols favored by 6.5 in this one. Nick Keezer going with the Vols minus the 6.5. Joe, I'm going to go Iowa plus 6.5. I think Tennessee wins, but I think it's going to be close. I think Tennessee will win by about 4. So I'll take Iowa plus the 6.5. Joe Rexrode, your selection in the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl.
Vols 20, Iowa 13. So I guess that means I'm going with the Vols.
13's a big number.
I know, 33. What is the over-under, by the way? Do we know? What's the over-under on this sucker?
I can
Probably
figure that
right
out
around
very
35.
quickly. Is that your official
35.
guess, 35?
That's my guess. My guess is 35.
Before I get there, my official guess is going to be 37. So let's see what we got here. The over-under on FanDuel Sportsbook, man, you're good. 35.5.
Oh, baby.
Look at there.
So I'm taking the under. But still, you're impressed with the Iowa output, so there we go.
No
That's
question
what we're
about
to be watching.
The first game of the college football playoff semifinal, Alabama taking on Michigan. Michigan is a 1.5-point favorite in this game. I'll go first. I'm going with Bama. I think Bama's going to win the game outright. I think that's a tough draw for Michigan to get Alabama as the 4 seed when you're number 1, and you could kind of see it on their faces on the reaction of the selection show. I think it'll be a good game. I think it'll come down to the wire, but I think Jalen Milroe and Alabama make more plays in the end, and they win the game outright. So I'll go Bama plus the 1.5. Joe Rexrode, Michigan favored by 1.5 in this game against Alabama.
It's really weird because Michigan continues to be the favorite. Maybe the money will end up going in. Better team and all this stuff. Maybe it's because of where we live in SEC country. I don't know, but Michigan has a very good chance to win this game. I think neither team will run the ball straight at the other team. I think both teams have outstanding secondaries. and I think it's going to come down to dynamic quarterback play. J.J. McCarthy has not played great. Iowa made him look bad. So keep that in mind, Nico watchers. Iowa's defense is no joke. I think McCarthy's really good. I think he has a chance, but I think Jalen Milroe makes one or two huge plays in this game. Coming off what he did against Georgia, I just have to believe in him, and that's why I'm going to go Bama.
So going with Bama. Nick Keyser taking Michigan in the competition. So Keyser going with Michigan minus 1.5. Is there a post-game celebration with the winning coach at Disneyland? Do they go together? Is it a return trip to Disneyland for Harbaugh and Saban taking another picture with Mickey Mouse, which if you missed it, go find that online. Just beautiful the other day between those two.
Put them on the teacups together, I say, after the game. Also, does Alabama allow its players to use their iPads after the game? Because since they won't let them, because they think Connor Stallions is like hacking into their iPads.
Is that a real thing?
Question. No, that's a real thing that they actually have limited some of what they've done with personal iPad film study because of their concerns about Michigan. Absolutely.
Those pesky Wolverines. Never know what they're getting into.
Amazing.
Saban's pulled out like the projector screens, like, everybody come in. Leave your iPads at home. It's good stuff. All right, Texas taking on Washington in the other college football playoff semifinal. Texas favored by 4.5. Joe Rexrode, you're up first in this one. Who you got in that one?
Give me Washington. In fact, give me Washington to win and pull the upset outright. I think Texas is a really good team, and I think, I think Sarkisian has really established himself here. He's a fantastic play caller. They have dominant athletes all over the field, especially up front. But Kalen DeBoer is a really good coach, and I think more people are starting to figure that out. And I just feel like this team has a special thing going for it, and I think the Huskies are going to pull this off. I'm excited for both games, but I'm more excited for this game than I feel like a lot of people are. I think too many people think Texas is going to run all over them. Maybe they will, but I don't think so. I think Washington's a team of destiny.
Nick also going with Washington in the matchup as well. Give me Texas. I'm going with the Longhorns minus the 4.5. I don't think it's going to be a blowout by any stretch of the imagination, but I think Texas will end up winning by about a touchdown, somewhere in that neighborhood. I think their offense is going to be too much, but it's going to be a good game. I'm looking forward to it as well. Like, I feel like, Joe, we've got a chance here, which is a rare occasion, to have two really good semifinal games, which I feel like we kind of talk about every year, but it feels like this one might actually play out that way, where there's two really good semifinal games.
Yeah, I mean, last year we had that.
Yeah. It's
So
been a rarity.
Remember that. Yeah, and we didn't think we would. We thought that Georgia was going to just house Ohio State, and then it was like, oh, my goodness. So last year we got spoiled, and then, of course, we could just go to bed at halftime of the Natty game, unfortunately. So Hopefully we get three good ones, but I feel good about Monday.
Joe, we move to the individual portion of the program. 2 individual picks this week. You're up first. Your first individual selection.
So Panthers at Jags, and I don't even know at this point what the deal is with Trevor Lawrence. But it's Jags minus 6, and the Panthers suck. And the Jags are desperate, and they're at home, and the Panthers suck. So give me the Jags minus 6.
Going with Jacksonville minus 6 against Carolina. Carolina's been playing hard, man. They kept it with win 3 against the Packers last week.
They have. They suck.
Nick Keyser going with the Dallas Cowboys minus 4.5 against the Detroit Lions, and he is locking down on the Cowboys. So no faith from Keyser in the Detroit Lions after wrapping up the division.
Well, after the Lions have screwed him a few times this year, so I would just avoid them altogether. But I don't mind that pick at all. I think the Cowboys are going to roll.
I'm going to start in college football with my first one. You got Missouri and Ohio State coming up. I think Ohio State's a 4.5-point favorite. I think Missouri is going to win outright, but I think they're definitely covering the 4.5. I'm locking down on Missouri plus the 4.5 against Ohio State. I think they'll be the more motivated team. Did I take your pick?
No, but I should go next.
Well, go ahead.
Missouri, Ohio State minus 4.5. Ohio State lock.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really interesting because you and I both went with this philosophy with Boise State, UCLA, and the more talented team rolled. And then you stuck with it with USC Louisville. I flipped and said, you know what? I'm going to go with the more talented team, whether they care or not. And I won and you lost. And you're sticking with the team that cares about it more. I think Ohio State is just too loaded, and I think the backups that get to play tonight are going to absolutely run all over them. I hope it's a good game.
Who's playing quarterback?
I have no idea. I don't care. I know that USC had some dude I've never heard of with
That's true.
6 touchdown passes against crappy Louisville. So I have no idea, nor do I care. I know it's a 5-star.
That's true.
Okay, maybe a 4-star.
That's true. Keys are going.
Question though, we should look that up.
Keys are going with the Raiders plus 3.5 against the Colts for his second individual selection. Raiders plus 3.5 against the Colts. I will go Cincinnati plus 7 against Kansas City. Look, the Bengals are obviously limited without Burrow and what they can do out there. But right now, I don't trust Kansas City's offense against anybody to blow somebody out. So I think Kansas City's going to win, but I'll take Cincinnati plus the 7 against the Chiefs. It's just it's weird to say that with a Patrick Mahomes-led offense, Joe, but it's hard for me to get there with them just crushing. I mean, they looked bad last week against the Raiders. Bad.
They did. I think that's an interesting pick, interesting game. It all depends, like how many times during the game do the Chiefs players look up at the box at Taylor Swift? You know, I mean, if they can keep that to like 3 per half, I think they'll be okay. But obviously, it's just been a huge problem.
You staying at home this week? Is Kelsey like, hey, you're too much of a distraction for my teammates. Going to need you to stay at the house.
I don't know. Could there be trouble in paradise?
I don't know. Really is. It's a
huge issue.
Pretty decent week in the NFL. Like you've got the Lions, Cowboys, obviously the Dolphins and the Ravens coming up to the best teams in the AFC. That's a big one coming up this weekend. You got a little Sunday night matchup between the Packers and the Vikings. You know, on paper, Bengals Chiefs before the season looks like a great game this week, and it's lost a little bit of its luster, but a pretty good week in the NFL.
Yeah, that has. And look, the 1 seed in the NFC, which I did not think would be really any kind of an issue because of what the Ravens went in and did to the Niners. It's interesting. With the Lions, I think the Lions riding high are going to lose at Dallas, but if they somehow win that game, they're right in there. The Eagles have an easy schedule, but what the heck's going on with them?
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, San Francisco at Washington, that's a big line. I looked at that game too. That's what is that number? That's a big number. You know, Washington is one of those teams at home.
12.5, by the way.
Spoiler. Yeah, 12.5. Yeah, I think that game actually could be interesting. Maybe I'm crazy.
Jacoby Brissett starting.
And then he's exactly the kind of guy who does this to teams like that, right? The veteran who has played well at times, who kind of comes in. The Flacco's the extended version of it this year, but Brissett's exactly the kind of guy who comes in and beats a team like this out of nowhere. So, I don't know, that's one to watch.
Coming up next, it's time for Pred's Pick to Click here on Robby and Rexrode. Be the first caller, 615-737-1025, our phone number, 615-737-1025. If you guess a goal scorer for the Predators tonight as they take on the Detroit Red Wings, you win a pair of tickets to a future Nashville Predators home game. We'll do that next. This is Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game.
It's time for Preds Picks to click.
And a shot at the score.
Do you think you know who will score a goal in tonight's Predators game?
It'll give and go.
Shoot your shot for a chance to win Preds tickets. Call 615-737-1025 now. Pick to Click is brought to you by TJ Anderson Homes of Benchmark Realty. Visit tjandersonhomes.com to see why they are preferred so often. It's Pick to Click, now on Robby and Rexrode.
It is that time of the day, time for Preds Pick to Click here on Robby and Rexrode, presented by TJ Anderson Homes of Benchmark Realty. Visit your home with TJ to get your home seen, heard, and sold. Preds back in action tonight, taking on the Detroit Red Wings. Puck drop at 6 o'clock, pregame at 5 o'clock here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. The standings are as follows. Some movement in the competition. The listeners back on the board last time out with a correct guess of Ryan O'Reilly. So they now lead the competition with 9 correct answers. Rexrode in second place with 8. Nick Keyser with 5. And I remain on 2. Apologies to Philip Forsberg the other night. Sorry. Tough one.
I'm sorry, man, but you just have to take one for the team the rest of the way. just don't pick anyone who reasonably has a chance to score a goal.
With that in
don't
mind,
pick anyone who gets paid to score goals. Okay,
Luke Shen, I'm coming for you. With that in mind, let's go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in Kyle. Kyle, good morning. Thanks for calling in. Who is your pick to click tonight for the Nashville Predators?
Good morning, gentlemen. I'm ready for the Predators to unleash some glorious domination on the Red Wings tonight.
Oh, boy.
Oh, boy.
Nice.
After contemplating it, I thought about picking UC Saros, but instead I'm going with Tommy Novechkin.
I like it. Kyle, thanks for the call. Tommy Novak, the selection. Rexrode, you're up first in the competition today, and I'm not going to have a chance to pick him, so it leaves the door wide open for you. Novak off the board. Your pick to click for the Nashville Predators.
I love that pick. Fantastic pick. I'll take Philip Forsberg.
He hadn't scored in 5 games.
Yep. And now we know why he's about to.
Well, I think we might.
You're welcome, Phil.
Novak and Forsberg off the board. Connor Newt, you are Nick Keyser today. Your pick to click for the Nashville Predators.
I'll stick with my guy that I went with earlier in the show. Give me Ryan O'Reilly to score.
Connor Newt predicting a 3-point night from Ryan O'Reilly. So we'll see what happens.
That's right. Way to be consistent.
I like it. Novak, Forsberg, O'Reilly off the board. So who is the lucky soul for the Nashville Predators that gets selected by me today? You know, Ryan McDonough. You're the lucky soul. Ryan McDonough.
That's good. He's fine if he doesn't score. He's not going to be mad at you. You don't want that dude to be mad at you, but I don't think he'll be mad at you.
Ryan McDonough will score tonight for the Nashville Predators. He's got 1 on the year so far. I've got 2 in the competition, so not a whole lot of difference there. McDonough on the board. By the way, on the power play right now, so I feel a little bit better about it.
That's the kind of taking one for the team that we're talking about. Well done. Hey, you know what isn't well done, Robbie, real fast?
What's that?
Ron on the text line said, Pop-Tarts or toaster strudels? The great debate. No, there's no debate,
There's no
Ron.
debate there.
The great debate.
Pop-Tarts by Country Mile.
I've never had one of those things, so I shouldn't even say they stink, but I know they stink.
Okay.
Are they?
They're not a Pop-Tart, though. They're okay.
Yeah. The great debate.
Joe, big weekend for the Predators. Detroit tonight, Washington tomorrow. Need to see if you can start to get guys like Glass and Novak and Evangelista, Parsonen. They need to get going a little bit offensively. The O'Reilly, Nyquist, Forsberg line has dried up a little bit offensively 5-on-5. I'm not concerned about it. I think they'll get back to being productive, but they need some other guys to start putting the puck in the back of the net a little bit more.
No doubt. And like you said earlier, this would be the kind of opponent who could maybe help somebody get off the schneid a little bit, the way the Red Wings have been letting the puck through. So that's good from that perspective. They are a dangerous team. You know, the Preds, of course, three power play goals given up the other night to Carolina, so they've given up 28 now on the year. I think they're 25th in PK percentage. I think the Wild have given up 33, but the Preds are, it's too many. That whole thing has just got to get better for the Preds to win as much as they need to win.
Joe, your final thoughts on the Titans and the Texans coming up on Sunday. Big one. We could see Levis and Stroud
Stroud's going to be in there. Levis has been a full participant all week, but in a part of the season where you're just trying to kind of get through it right now, if you're a Titans fan at 5-10 with no hope for the playoffs, at least maybe a fun matchup with the quarterbacks coming up on Sunday down in Houston.
Yeah, I hope we get it. I think it'd be fun to watch. We're going to see, I think, a lot of matchups between those guys. And this is a big deal to the Titans to win this game. It's obviously a big deal for ownership. It is an opportunity. The Titans did not want to be in a position of being spoilers this year, but they do have a chance to spoil things for the Texans and then the Jags next week at home. And, of course, what could be Derrick Henry's last game as a Titan. So these games inside that locker room are big, even though this team's out of it. And I understand any fan who's like, play hard, do well, Levis look good, and they get like a punt block for a TD, then and the draft positioning gets better, then, no one's crying. But the Titans don't want that.
I mean, right now, where are they at? Number 7 overall? Yep, 7th overall pick in the draft, according to Tankathon.com. Chargers at 5-10, Giants at 5-10, Jets at 6-10. So they're right in there with the Titans. Got the Giants, the Patriots at 5-11, starting to get on a little heater at the end of the year. Belichick winning some games on potentially his way out the door.
He finally decides to start putting in some winning game plans here at the end. I love it. I love it, Bill. By the way, Garrison's sitting here saying toaster strudels always over Pop-Tarts. See this, buddy? Now, Pop-Tarts have been this is the most brilliant marketing campaign ever. We all are
in the history of bowl games.
Pop-Tarts.
Yeah.
Seriously, like this shows you, but just want you to know this is blueberry right here, baby.
Blueberry, good one. We had somebody, Tim texted in earlier at our recommendation, tried the cherry Pop-Tarts for the first time, gave it a 10 out of 10. So, I mean,
yeah,
we never steer you wrong on this program.
One. See, blueberry.
Joe, I'm looking forward to your analysis coming up on Tuesday, live from Orlando for the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl. You'll be down there in person. We're going to be off on Monday for New Year's Day. We'll be back on the air on Tuesday, but looking forward to seeing what Nico can do in his first start down there with the Vols.
Yeah, it's. I'm looking forward to the game. It's a much more interesting game now. It is interesting. Bowls in general is sort of like the quarterback for next year thing. The opt-outs obviously have hurt bowls, but there is a little bit of in the secondary for the Vols. Look at some young guys you wouldn't have looked at if everybody was staying, and I think that makes them more interesting. And certainly we're all very interested in Nico. Just don't overreact, Vols fans, either way.
What if he goes out there and lights it up? What do you think Vol Twitter's going to do as this all takes place in live action? It's going to be wild.
Yeah, it'll be wild, man. It's almost like be careful what you wish for. You almost don't want that, But someone of my column was like, the reaction will be like last year with Milton in the Orange Bowl, and I'm like, Milton in the Orange Bowl last year had some really good throws, and I know he was MVP, but it wasn't like it was like this start to finish amazing performance,
Right.
And there were still people like, I want Nico day one next year.
Well, it'll be different.
And I get it.
Because you 5-star freshman quarterback. I mean,
yes.
Look, if he goes out there and lights it up, there'll be Tennessee fans on Monday, like tweeting at Alabama fans as the college football playoff is going on. Like, you better enjoy this right now because next year, it's getting ready to happen to you all.
Oh, God, yeah. I listen, if he lights up Iowa, again, it's not like everything around him is great either. If he does, I mean, keep things contained, but that probably means something.
Natty? You going Natty next year?
I'm going to say only one Natty in the next 2 years. I'm not saying they're winning both Natties in his 2 years. I'm just saying one. Like one semifinal, one Natty.
Will this be, if Michigan loses to Alabama, will this be the last game that Jim Harbaugh coaches for the Wolverines?
I think so. I think he's going to go to the NFL. I think the interest there has increased to a certain point, and that team is losing a lot from this. And they'll still be good next year, but this is the culmination. McCarthy off to the NFL, I think, and then all these offensive linemen. I think it makes sense for this to be it for him.
Joe, enjoy yourself in Orlando this weekend. We'll talk to you on Tuesday morning.
Sounds good. Enjoy the weekend, everybody.
Absolutely. Everybody have a happy New Year.
Be safe.
We'll see you next year. Joe, happy birthday. We'll talk to you next week. Chasing Big Joe coming up next. You're listening to 102.5, 106.3 The Game.